to bring the delegations in. I can bring up their presentation if you like. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Yep. To bring the delegations in, I can bring up their presentation if you like. There's an echo.
All right, we're live, Chair.
Very good. We are now at item 7.1 on the agenda, delegations. There is one registered delegation this evening for the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. Please note each delegation may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Reese Evans and Kathleen Kelly, members of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, are in attendance to provide an update on the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee and Accessibility for Ontarians for Disabilities Act, AODA. Reese and Kathleen, please go ahead.
Hi there. Oh, perfect. You're sharing. So good evening, everyone. Next slide, please. In 2003, 6 municipalities came together to create the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. And the committee includes the town of Lincoln, the township of West Lincoln, the town of Pelham, the city of Thorold, the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and the town of Grimsby. Next slide, please. In 2021, the committee expanded, so we are now joined by the city of Port Colborne. We welcome Port Colborne, and we will assist the city to ensure compliance with the AODA. We will work to develop positive relationships within the local community. Next slide, please. The committee originally did audits from 2003 through to 2006. We're doing refresher audits at the request of staff to ensure AODA compliance. This year, we were auditing 5 facilities per municipality. This also includes parks and trails, as well as buildings. We prepared refresher training in AODA compliance areas and have provided it to JAC staff contacts. We welcome items for the JAC Facebook page to promote the efforts of the municipality. We also work with the town of Lincoln's Age-Friendly Committee on a joint events guide. We also, committee branding, we have a new logo, a community flag, and a Facebook page. Next slide, please. And this is our logo. Next slide, please. So we continue to promote our accessibility award. We use an audit checklist in each business, and the checklist includes wheelchair access, such as ramps and automatic doors, visual access, such as large print and braille menus, employment, so the hiring of people with disabilities, as well as customer service. If the business scores 80% or higher, they receive the We Are Accessible award. And to date, 10 businesses have received the award throughout our catchment area. In 2025, so 2025 is the year of compliance. So currently 22% of the Canadian population has a disability. The deadline for full accessibility in the municipality is fast approaching. So this means that goods and services will need to be accessible. Customer service, information, communications, new facilities, and services all must meet the AODA compliance criteria by 2025. Next slide, please. We will continue to work with staff and council to ensure compliance with the AODA and are available to answer questions or concerns and also to review site plans. Next slide, please. And our ask. So we ask council to assist us in ensuring the municipality meets the 2025 deadlines. We ask council to promote our We Are Accessible award to local businesses. We ask council to continue to communicate with us about their accessibility concerns and decisions. And we would like to thank you for this opportunity to present to council. Thank you.
Hello, Kathleen. I'm here for questions.
Yep, and if there's any questions at all, we're more than happy to answer anything for you.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. Is there any questions from council? Councilor Regima, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the member from Lincoln on the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, I just wanted to comment. I want to highlight the incredibly important work that this committee does because it's a constant uphill battle. That's the downside. And the reason that it's a constant uphill battle is that, and thank goodness for this, the vast majority of people don't have a disability that prevents them from being able to do day-to-day things that we all do. Going to work, making dinner, reviewing stuff online, getting down the stairs to find the batteries in a drawer somewhere. So the needs of those that do have a challenge are often not top of mind for most people. And that makes sense and it's understandable even. Hence the need for a focused group that keeps these issues top of mind as this group does. Having said that, there's a lot of wonderful people who go the extra mile to incorporate the recommendations of accessibility committees and to make it a priority to consult with them when major decisions are being made that affect the community at large. And I'm going to include into that group our staff at the town of Lincoln, because I've consistently heard accolades during my time on the committee. So thank you to staff for your ongoing attention to the needs of those with disabilities. My understanding is that we're well on our way in Lincoln to meeting those 2025 targets. So we're doing a good job of attempting to get there. And I want to thank you, Kathleen and Reese, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Regima. Are there any other questions from council? Councilor Timmers.
Thank you very much, Chair McPherson. Thank you to Reese and Kathleen for being here tonight. I am a member of the Age Friendly Committee and had the pleasure of partnering with your committee in working on an event guide. I just thought I would update you a little bit. It's currently being proofed and eventually, very soon, future, it will be in print. So very excited to have partnered together these two committees and working side by side. It was a really great initiative for all of our towns, actually. So anyway, thank you, Councilor McPherson. Those are my comments. I don't have any questions for tonight.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none. So thank you very much again, Kathleen and Reese, for sharing that information with us. It's very good to know who you are and how we're doing in our community. It sounds like you've got a lot of support here in Lincoln to make things more accessible. And I'm sure we have a lot more work to do. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councilor Regima that council receive and file the delegation of Reese Evans and Kathleen Kelly, members of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, regarding an update on the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee and Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, AODA. I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to call the vote. Van, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. And you're first, Councilor McPherson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Micklick,
Yes.
Councilor Pachariba,
Yes.
Councilor Reimer,
Yes.
Councilor Regima,
Yes.
Councilor and Deputy Mayor Russell,
Yes.
Councilor Timmers,
Yes.
and Mayor Easton.
Support.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
We are now considering item 7.2, the consent agenda, inclusive of item 7.2.1, Lincoln Public Library Board Minutes of June 15th, 2021. Would any member like to remove this item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, we will move. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councilor Russell that council receive and file for information the Lincoln Public Library Board Minutes of June 15, 2021. I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to call the vote. Devon, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And again, you're up first.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Micklick,
Yes.
Counselor Patriva,
Yes.
Counselor Reimer,
Yes.
Counselor Regima,
Yes.
Counselor and Deputy Mayor Russell,
Yes.
Counselor Timmers,
Yes.
and Mayor Easton.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you. We will now consider item 7.3.1, report /05-21, administration of policies and procedures. I will now ask our our Director of Legislative Service and Town Clerk and Deputy Clerk to proceed with the presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and we'll pull the presentation up in just a moment.
Can you see that okay?
Yes, thanks, Devan. So thanks very much, and thanks, Chair McPherson. As you know, Council approved policies and administrative procedures, sets the practices, direction, and guidance for the corporation. These processes set standards, governance, and service delivery for the betterment of Lincoln. Upon my start in 2017, it had been found that corporate policies have not been housed in one environment or centralized over the last 20 years. To reduce red tape, streamline our policy development processes, as well as remove redundancy, the Clerk's Department in 2019 undertook a review of all policies to ensure their continued relevancy. It was found that 180 town policies were identified, and we were able to recover 154 of them. 26 were deemed obsolete, and the remaining 128 will be reviewed. Our department will work with each corporate department to prioritize the policies based on legislative requirements, health and safety, as well as relevancy to our corporate mandate. Moving forward, as a way to enhance efficiency, legislative services will be managing all policies to ensure a centralized database and records management function. And this will allow us to be efficient across the whole organization. In addition, applicable policies will be reviewed every 3 to 5 years to ensure they continue to meet the needs of the town, which fosters accountability to the public. To manage all of this, a new policy framework has been developed, which will be a helpful guiding document in the management and creation of policies. Next slide. So why do policies matter? First and foremost, policies establish the corporation's values, ethics, and commitment in how it operates and carries out council directives. It outlines expectations and responsibilities and facilitates consistent decision-making. Implementing good sound policies and reviewing them regularly assists in the public expectations and trust the town's competitiveness, social and environmental consequences, and inclusion. In review of all policies, the goal is to ensure policies are relevant, efficient, and meet the needs of the municipality as well as the community. At the end of the review, town policies, our goal will comply with legislation and align with municipal priorities, follow consistent wording and formatting. Policies will be structured so that they remain relevant for a longer period of time. For example, no references to specific staff or positions that may change over a period of time. It'll meet accessibility requirements. Additionally, all relevant municipal policies will be available online and organized by policy streams, making them searchable and easier for the public and staff to locate. This enhances trust and transparency with the public and staff. Next slide. Current state and some observations. As previously mentioned, over the last 20 years, Clerks has compiled 5 different files which policy names have been identified, and that has been 180 policies and/or procedures. And we will be reviewing 128 of those policies. Our department presented this to our senior management team with their endorsement. As such, we are in front of council tonight, as this has been an area that you have expressed interest in making sure it's improved and aligned with council priorities. I'll now let Devan lead you through the rest of the presentation to outline the quality of standards, newly developed framework, and policy program and next steps. And all of this is being done to enhance efficiencies here at Town Hall. Devan?
Thanks, Julie. Going forward, so the standards to guide policy work, these tiles represent those. So future looking policy should look at what we are hoping to achieve now, but should also help us navigate into the future. This means reviewing current precedents and also current trends that we are seeing, and that's on all levels of government, so municipal, provincial, and federal. Additionally, customer focused is the foundation of customer loyalty. So our policies should be seen as a tool and process that help us to form real, honest, and transparent relationships with our customers. Policies must be evidence-based. So while reviewing and revising our current policies, as well as drafting new policies, staff really should be doing our due diligence and using the best evidence from case laws, studies, any data that we've received, feedback provided, etc. Outcomes focused, we really are focusing on what outcomes we are achieving and trying to achieve and what those results are. Physically sound and risk appropriate, our policies assist in providing the best possible services, but should also be physically sound and risk appropriate. And by risk, I don't just mean an injury or liability. I do mean taking into consideration the risk to people, customers, assets, our environment, our organization's reputation. Also things along those lines. Policies must be aligned and integrated. So we should be aligning ourselves with our council priorities, our community vision, any of our master plans that we have endorsed, and additionally integrating with current software or platforms that we already have. Our policies should be transparent, as this is the key to our relationships with the community, council, internally and externally, as well as policies should be written clear and concise in plain language. And then lastly, all of our policies should support and encourage our decision-making. With all that being said, within the proposed framework, the town will have a centralized registry for our policies, both internally and externally. Both of these will be maintained by the Legislative Services and Clerk's Department. The internal site will provide notification to staff when the review and expiry dates are approaching for a timely review. The framework defines policy instruments, for example, corporate policy, administration policy versus a bylaw to take it a step further. Additionally, the framework defines roles and responsibilities and a process for the development, review, and approval of all of our policies and procedures across the organization. The Legislative Services team will provide training and guidance and resources to our staff to ensure that we are doing the review timely and efficiently. And at the end of the day, this corporate-wide initiative is about ensuring policies and procedures adhere to current legislation and our best practices and are properly stored, maintained, and accessed. So our new policy at a glance, as previously mentioned, the new policy program will have an internal and external repository, which will be maintained by our team here in Legislative Services. The policy framework includes definitions, instruments, review and approval processes, new categories, new naming conventions, and numbering, which will tie into our records management retention program, as well as we have developed a template to ensure that we are AODA compliant. And lastly, our team will be hosting several training sessions for staff and will lead the process as well as continue to monitor and assist where needed. So there will be new categories that policies fall under, which will depend on the business need or requirement and will form part of the policy number. There are 5 main categories that are proposed. Administration, which includes policies related to operational items such as communications, general corporate, strategic policies, information and technology, privacy and security. For example, the social media policy would be an example of this. Finance, pretty self-explanatory. However, it includes policies related to the internal financial control and operations, and controls of the town, financial planning, and purchasing. So for example, the purchasing policy. Governance, which includes policies related to council or by means which the town is governed by, and council remains accountable and transparent, which topics include council and committee services, elections, records management. An example of a policy would be the use of municipal resources during the election campaign period. Human resources, includes our employee-related policies, which topics are for development, management, and recruitment, as well as health and safety. An example of this is the violence and harassment in the workplace policy. And lastly, municipal services encompasses the provisions of the municipal services, which includes general municipal services, accessibility, cemetery services, community development, engineering and construction, facilities, permits, recreation and culture, special requests, as well as winter services. Numbering conventions will now be combined with our records retention schedule, as well as our corporate acronyms, and policy numbers are going to be assigned by our legislative team after approval. So these are the definitions that we have drafted. I'm not going to read them line by line, but the draft working definitions are corporate policy, administrative policy, departmental policy, guideline, and standard operating procedure. And this will be the determining factor for how a draft document is moved through the policy and review and approval process, sorry. Again, these are the working definitions of just the guides and SOPs. Council, you will see the following action plan. We have completed phase 1. With council's approval, we will move into phase 2 with a target of completion for Q4. And then in Q1 of 2022, we anticipate completing the rollout corporate wide. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the town clerk again. Oh, you're on mute.
You would think I would know this by now. Sorry. So this new policy program will ensure ongoing success for the corporation, become compliant with legislation, and also incorporate into our records management retention schedule. This will also provide timely opportunity to review council-approved policies to ensure it's reflective of its council's priorities. It has already been identified that a number of policies will be updated, rescinded, or changed to administrative policies, which clerks will help assist with. And we will be working with all departments to ensure that they comply. All of this is a good news story for the citizens of Lincoln. We are streamlining our policies and procedures to ensure effective and good local government. And last, I'd like to especially thank Devan, our deputy clerk, for her diligence in bringing all of this information and coordination of these policies to this point. This has been a lot of work that has been undertaken. And we'll take questions if there is.
Thank you, Julie and Devan. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Mikola, go ahead.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much, Council Chair McPherson. Through you to Julie. It seems like to me a lot of reading and a lot of updating and a lot of research involved here. How confident are you that you'll achieve your goal of the first quarter of 2022?
So through the councillor, through the chair to the councillor. Well, what our goal is, councillor, is to implement. It will take some time to review each and every policy that we have, but our goal is to get council to approve this framework tonight, upon which we will be going out and training each department on the new structure, on the new framework, on the new templates, and what that looks like incorporating into our retention schedule. So it's not to be completed by Q1 22, but rather implemented and start the process. And go from there.
Thank you for that clarification. Just to add to that question, so we're not really sure how long this will take. How often would these policies typically get reviewed? They hadn't been reviewed since 2022. That sounds like a long time, but how long do these policies typically get reviewed?
through the chair to the councillor. So typically a policy should be reviewed every 3 to 5 years or sooner, depending on if legislation has changed and it needs to comply. So that's typically a review on one policy. So we will be working with each department. We do have a high priority, a medium, and a low. So we'll be working with the high priority items first, and then working our way down to ensure that each and every policy will be reviewed. My expectation, Councillor, is that working with clerks, we will help assist that as much as we possibly can. And a lot of these policies are in good form. There's a few that are in need of updating for sure. And the high priority items right now are HR policies, anything to do with health and safety, and or legislatively compliant.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair McPherson, for allowing me that opportunity to ask those questions. It sounds like a lot of work and a lot of time that will be required. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mary Easton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Madam Clerk and Madam Deputy Clerk, how much of a role do the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion play in the development of new policy?
So I would say, through the chair to the mayor, I would say now that we have a policy in place which speaks to diversity and inclusion, we'll be taking a look at all policies through that lens. It's not necessarily scoped out in the template itself, but it is a lens that we will be taking a look at all policies, especially the ones dealing with human resources and health and safety for sure.
Okay, and do you anticipate that there would be changes in the classification of policies? For example, are there corporate policies that might become administrative policies or vice versa?
There could be. I can't give you a definitive answer right now without having the full list in front of me. It depends really on, I would say, also what's been delegated already to staff. So if I take a look at our delegated authority list that is not been updated in quite some time, we have to compare that against what has already been done. And so I don't have a particular answer or a data to give you tonight.
Okay, all right. Well, that'll probably come along. My third question then is really one of clarification. And could you just repeat again when the last time these policies were, what year was that?
Through the chair to the mayor. Well, you know, to start off, we had to have a begin point and an end point. And so, you know, we've had policies, you know, that we tracked for a lot of years, but however, we started 20 years worth. I felt that was a good range to go with, and those are ones that we found. And so, you know, anything over and above that, I mean, it would have been outdated severely, and so it would have been sunsetted or no longer relevant. But 20 years worth is what we've captured, and that gives us enough data to move forward, and also to take a look at the gaps, what we have and what we require. And so we will be bringing new policies forward to council for approval, should they be required.
Okay, all right, that's great. Well, I think that this is really very much all about, and those corporate policies really define the role of council and separate our responsibilities from the administrative policies. And it's very, very important to get this on track. I want to thank Devan for the work that she has done. For those of us who have worked on policies of this type, revising policies and procedures can be like an albatross around your neck when you know you have to do a certain amount every month. So thank you for taking this on. It's extremely important to the success of council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And we now go to Councillor Rajima.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. Thanks again also very much for bringing this forward and shedding some light on the work that you've been doing. My question is about the importance of transparency and accountability. And you mentioned earlier on in your presentation that these policies will be searchable and easily accessed by the public. So I'm curious, I guess, how easy is it now for the public to access these policies? And I also want to know if you can tell me what kind of policies are most often, I mean, do you get people calling in, sending in emails, looking for a particular policy? And which one would that be that first jumps to mind?
Through the chair to the councillor. So to address your first question about the website, I would say that we get phone calls from the public as well as staff and councillor members that have a hard time trying to navigate our website and trying to find information. There are policies that are listed on our website. You would have to drill down. It's not very easy to find. I know our website is undergoing a redesign. And so in working with communications and IT, it has been identified that we would like an open data format in which it would be very easy to navigate and find our bylaws and all of our town policies, which would be searchable and easily accessed and also AODA compliant. So that is something that we're looking forward to do. And I would say that, Councillor, to your other question, if a member of the public would like a policy, all they have to do is, if they're having a hard time, they would just connect with the clerk's department. We'd be happy to send them that. It is public information, and I'm hoping to achieve with the redesign and working with communications that our website is more accessible and more available, and more information is available to the public for sure. In answer to the other question that you had, which is the what is the most requested policy? I don't really have a most requested policy per se, but probably the one that does come to mind is the sale of lands. It's not really a policy, but more of a bylaw, our procedural bylaw. So I would say more bylaws rather than policies are requested, as those are also kind of embedded and a little bit hard to find on our website for sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. Makes sense. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And I do have a question. Mr. Deputy Mayor, if you wouldn't mind taking the chair, I can pose my question.
Certainly, I have the chair. Please ask your question, Councilor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and through to Julie. So a policy like naming parks and town facilities, where would that fall in here? Would that, can I assume that that would be under corporate policies, or would that be under, I'm going to guess at this, municipal? There was a municipal piece to it. I'm very confused by the report that there was so many different categories and so maybe if you could tell me, where would something like that fall?
Right. So I understand that there might have been some questions under the new categories versus the subsection, which is the draft working definition. So for the naming policy, Councillor, it would fall under corporate, but in order to fit under a category in which we and it basically by topic or by subject, it would fit under municipal services. So under municipal services, and then there is a definition under our corporate policy. And the corporate policy definition is just an approval process, in that when it is a corporate policy, it should be coming before council to require approval. And so that is one of the policies, Councillor McPherson, that is up for review for sure. And that will be coming forward to council as well.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just as a follow-up, it's safe to assume that there's no change in authority with this report, that remains as it was, and that is to be dealt with under another report or another discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor McPherson. We actually had a similar question come up in our ward meeting this past week about why we would let developers name our streets and what the policies lie regarding around that. So I know that is something that will be coming forward as well. But I turn the chair back over to you, Councilor McPherson, to
Thank you,
resume the meeting.
Vice Chair, and also Mr. Deputy Mayor. Oh, Councilor Mikulik is back up. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you very much, Chair McPherson, for allowing me a second chance to speak. You just put an interesting subject there. Earlier, we heard as far as how the policies are viewed and in what order. Is the way to, should a member of council want to accelerate the viewing of a policy or the reviewing of a policy, that can happen? Who is determining when policies are, or the order to which they're looked at or reviewed?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, through the chair to the councillor. So I am not aware of the last time when Lincoln underwent a review of all its policies. This has something that has been mentioned since my time here at the town of Lincoln. And so, councillor, I can say that, because of the wide array of information that we are undertaking, we will be going through each department policy with a high priority, a medium priority, and a low priority. And those ones identified as a high priority will be based on several criteria in terms of the need, the requirement, does it comply with legislation, and that will be, and there will be some more criteria, but that will be the driving force as to which policies are getting addressed sooner versus the other ones that will be moving further down the list. My hope is, Councillor, that over the course of, I would say, a year to a year and a half, that we will have hopefully most of this completed, so that this brings us to a state where we are in a managing state now, and that these policies will come up every 3 to 5 years or sooner, depending on legislation. And so this is a good thing.
I appreciate that. It's just with regards to timing, and I take, for example, the naming of a park. If there's that situation or that circumstance arising in the near term or near future, should that be viewed sooner than later? And without knowing the way the order is determined, as far as what the level of importance is, I asked that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So, seeing no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers that council receive and file report 0521 regarding the administration of policies and procedures, and that council approve the administration of policies and procedures attached as Appendix A to guide future policy creation. I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to call the vote. Go ahead, Devan.
Thank you. And Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Mikulik?
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Rajima?
Yes.
Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Yes.
Mayor Easton?
Support.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you. We will now consider item 7.3.2, report FN-18-21, information technology project status update. I will now ask our Director of Finance, Administration, and Innovation to provide introductory comments.
Okay, I'm sorry, my camera is not up. I've been deactivated, it seems. So I'll just give a couple of introductory remarks and then we'll turn it over to Syed, our business analyst, to go through a high-level presentation, and both John and Syed will be here to answer any questions council have. So I've asked both the IT department to bring forward all the current and ongoing IT projects along with our future and planned projects. I think it's important for us to do this on a periodic basis, and what I propose is every 6 months to come forward with a status update on all the IT projects underway or planned. I think it's important considering that council entrusts us with a great oversight and great duty to deliver on projects, to improve efficiencies, to improve processes, to enhance customer service across the town. So I think it's ideal for us to do that. Shortly, Syed will go through a high-level presentation, and following that, John and Syed will be able to answer any detailed question related to the 9 projects undergoing this year, the 3 projects included in our budget for 2022 as a capital budget request, and then anything related to the 2023 projects. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Syed Kazmi, our new business analyst, who will provide council with a quick summary and presentation.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good evening, member of council. My name is Syed Mudassir Kazmi, and I am the IT business system analyst. Tonight, I would like to could you please turn on the presentation, please? Would you mind to please display the presentation?
This one.
Sorry, Saeed, I'm just having some difficulties pulling it up. Give me one moment.
Okay, no worries.
We're having technical difficulties this evening. Go figure, it's IT.
Can you confirm that you can see that presentation?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, member of council. My name is Syed Mudassir Kazmi, and I am the IT business system analyst. Tonight, I would like to provide you with an IT project status update. Next slide, please. Tonight, I will provide you an overview of all the IT projects underway and planned for the town of Lincoln. The report also provided to council this evening will include additional details or key information. Both the presentation and reports are meant to help inform, update council on our current IT projects and progress update. I will cover the current project underway and provide a short description, the project status, key and next milestones, and any potential risks where applicable. I will also provide an outlook on our proposed IT project 2022 and beyond. Finally, I will include with the next steps. Next slide, please. So these next 2 slides cover all the IT projects currently underway in 2021. Currently, there are 9 projects at various stages of completion, and you will note a few are close to or have recently gone live. Many of these projects touch or affect many users group, and each are expected to either improve operations, enhance the user experience, or address potential gaps. On the first slide, you can see we have 5 potential projects listed. These cover a variety of items or areas, and we are currently close to completing 2 by the end of the year. Our recreational management software is currently being deployed, and we expect full functionality by end of this year. The council chamber was expected to go live mid-October, but due to vendor supply chain issue and others, this will most likely be ready by mid-November. This will give council and others the flexibility to attend meetings from virtually anywhere. Matt will cover the cybersecurity initiative a bit later in detail for council, so I will leave that update to him. The asset, CRM, and work order software and website improvements are in data gathering phase. We are hopeful the website project can be completed early 2022 and the work order system on or before December 2023. Each item have been identified as a priority for the town, and I can provide more information as needed during the question and answer session of this presentation. Next slide, please. Thank you. These are the next 4 IT projects slated for 2021. These include gaining an understanding of our readiness and gaps as it relates to Geographical Information System, commonly known as GIS. At this time, we use external sources to provide this service, and numerous areas have requested a deeper review to see if we can take a different approach to this item. The endpoint automation would allow us to remotely manage the software update process. It is essential to make sure our software package are current, have the latest tool and updates. City View replacement, the current software is at the end of life and needs a refresh. We are currently looking to see if we should simply update the existing software package or look to other software solutions that currently available in the market. Internet collaboration portal. It is unfortunate, but fact is town staff have expressed their frustration on how difficult it is to work and share information internally. We are currently exploring options to create an intranet for staff so they can collaborate and improve their work and efficiencies. You please note we are early in the process for these 4 projects. Much of the work we are doing in scoping the project and getting their needs and business requirements, and expect to complete 3 or 4 in 2022 with the GIS solution sometime in 2023. Next slide, please. Thank you. These are the 3 proposed projects that we have planned for 2022. These projects have been included in 2022 capital budget requests as noted in detailed report. The fire emergency software upgrade is expected to yield efficiencies, and we will need to find an alternate as the software provider has indicated they are not supporting Canadian operations going forward. We are currently assessing our requirements. This includes with Grimsby, and we expect to have a new solution in place Q2 2022. The records management system will allow both staff and our resident to find and search items easier. Right now, search mechanism is an inefficient and long tedious process. We are currently very early in the process of gathering internal user needs and requirements. This project is expected to go live late 2023. The human resource system, many of the town processes are done manually, and this includes HR functions and support. The idea is to get a software application to centralize and automate many of these manual processes. It will improve efficiencies for all users and help ensure accuracy. We are currently copying the project and expect to have these go live by Q2 2023. Next slide, please. Thank you. For 2023 and beyond, we are currently looking at 4 IT projects for the town of Lincoln. These have been brought forth as future projects identified as need by department staff. You will note we expect to look at these in more detail between Q2 to Q3 2022. Our project is always to complete the prior high priority projects first, and then look at both the timing, required resources, and see if these remain a priority for the town going forward. These projects are expected to yield efficiencies in staff time and help improve processes. We will present full business cases if the projects are to proceed in 2023 budget. Next slide, please. Thank you. Following this discussion and presentation to council this evening, we will continue to work on 9 IT projects underway. If council approves 2022 budget as proposed, we will continue working on the 3 IT projects identified for 2022. The staff are here tonight to answer any question you may have on 3 projects. Finally, we would propose to continue to provide periodic updates to council on all ongoing and planned IT project. It is my aim to provide updates to council on a semi-annual basis. With that, this concludes tonight's presentation, and I will open the floor for questions from council. John, Matt, and I would be happy to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Syed. And are there any questions from council? We'll start with Councillor Pachariba.
Thanks, Chair McPherson. Thank you, Syed. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the presentation. Question. So with respect to the rec and facilities management system. So in the past, you know, we've operated in silos. Parks and Rec has had a management system. Library has had a management system. museum has had a management system. So we pay 3 times to do bookings and that. Please, please, please tell me that this is going to be used across the corporation.
Well, currently, I mean, the purpose of the rec-in facility is to, like it mentioned, the name rec-in facility. So it is currently sufficing the need for rec-in facilities management. So, I mean, there is no interconnection with all other areas that you have mentioned. So right now it is only for the purpose of rec-in facilities management. It will only suffice the need for rec-in facilities booking system.
But those other
like you mentioned, library
departments still book. They've got rooms to book, and they book programs, right? It's this multifaceted approach that we need to adopt rather than buying the same thing 3 times, from my standpoint. And being on those other committees, I now get a holistic picture of what we're looking at. I see Mr. Wagner has his hand up, so.
Sure.
Councillor, the IT department is definitely looking where there's synergies or where there's abilities to leverage or to utilize systems across multi-platforms or multi-departments. They definitely consider that when they do their user needs assessments or the business requirement documentation. They look to see applicability. Sometimes it's easy to do, but other times not so much. But they always will look first and foremost to see how far we can leverage a system and optimize it in order to avoid using multiple systems where possible. In some cases, though, it just isn't, because the business requirements for one unit may not be compatible with another, and there's not a software system that would accomplish everybody's needs. But we're trying to do that, and yes, we're trying to expand it to other areas. And I believe the museum is also looking at using this recreation software as well. So as we go along, we will continue to expand and see where their opportunities are.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
I see John Brown has got his hand up. John, go ahead.
You're on mute.
Oh, you'd think I'd figure this out being in IT. Thank you. Thank you, through Mr. Chair. The museum is absolutely 100% present at all of the meetings for the new rec and facility software. And we have reached out to the library, who have a very cost-effective solution in place. Hopefully, once they see how awesome the new system is, we can pry them away from that particular piece of software and maybe do some collaboration there. But definitely reached out to both, and we already have one on board. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And maybe Councillor Pachariva, you can,
I'll bring it up tomorrow night, Chair McPherson.
show
We've got library
interest
board
at the library. Thank you.
You got.
Any other questions? Guess he doesn't. Councillor and Deputy Mayor, or Russell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Syed. Great to see this information. My big concern really is I see we have the website improvements on tap for it looks like to be unveiled March 31st, 2022. But then I see 2 of the big foundations of what that website will entail, which would be the GIS and also our data. I'm just going to pull it up to see what the actual naming convention is for 2022. The electronic data document and records management system, which I know all of us, along with many residents out there, are, even though we are eating our green bananas, as Councillor Mikulik has indicated, will keep us young, are causing many gray hairs on our heads as we go through that. Is there any way to bring those dates a little bit closer in line? 19 months apart seems like a pretty big time frame when, again, both of those, in particular, the electronic document and records management system, is so integral to every or a lot of functions within the town and within our residents. Is there any way we can expedite that one a little bit?
Sure. Thank you so much for bringing on that piece. So yes, both projects have a interconnection, and both have a touch point for sure in terms of document, in terms of data scanning, in terms of availability, making sure the requirement is, the data is available for the residents. But both set of projects have a different set of timelines because of the nature of the project. So if you talk about the website project, so website improvement definitely relate with the information. But when we talk about the category, the departmental document scanning and archiving and digitally availability, so that has a lot of if and buts, and there are a lot more dependencies involved. So by coping up all these things, so we have to separate these two projects. In fact, a document digital archiving consists of another 3 layers of projects internally. So it's not one project, it has 3 subset of projects as well. So that's why the timeline is a bit longer than a website itself. So we are trying to match timeline. We will try to match timeline, but I mean, for sure, the timeline will not be matched up for both, because I mean, there is another solution in our mind. There's another scope of work in our mind that we will try to merge these two things if we could. I mean, we are basically right now looking for different solutions. So if we're able to figure out one solution that can figure out all the needs, so why not? For sure, we will go for that. But unfortunately, right now, there is no solution available that can cover all pieces of information into one. I mean, we always try to go for one unified solution, one stop solution, we call that in IT term, but not all the time we able to figure out one stop solution all the time, unless we try to go and explicitly develop something which required a lot of planning, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money. So that is one thing, but for sure, I'll keep in mind if we able to figure out some kind of one unified solution for both, so why not? Definitely, it will really be helpful for us as well.
Thank you, Syed. And just one follow-up through you, Mr. Chair.
Before you do that, I see Mr. Deanne had his hand up, and also Julie has her hand up, and maybe it's with regards to your question.
Thank you, Chair McPherson, and through you to the councillor. Councillor, great question, and probably I can give you back a little bit of time here. Maybe a slight typo. We're actually targeting Q3 2022 for the website redevelopment, so August, and so that might close the gap a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, did you have a comment?
I do. Thanks, Chair McPherson. Through you to the councillor. So some of the open data information that I had initially described to you will be hopefully available online with the redesign of the website for sure. The electronic records management system is also internally, not necessarily externally. And so that is a huge undertaking in terms of on how the town and all of the information compiled and what does that look like with regards to our records retention schedule. So it's more internally facing for the electronic records management system rather than externally. So that's why the timeline is the way that it is, because it is a massive undertaking of any kind of information that we have, which Saeed spoke to in terms of archiving, taking a look at our historical data up to our current data in terms of projects and any kind of information that comes forth to the town. So a record is in any form that we receive. And so to make it into an electronic form and to adhere to our records retention policy, it takes quite a bit of time.
Very good.
Okay, no, thank you very much. And actually, that
Mr. Deputy
answered my follow-up question. So have a wonderful night. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Ujima, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. And my question is about the enhanced cybersecurity work that has to be done. When I look at the chart in, I think it's Appendix A or B. It's Appendix B. It's a chart with all the red and the green and the yellow telling us when they're going to be completed and whether they are high IT effort, where the red lies. So that tells me that the enhanced cybersecurity work is proposed to be done Q2 2022. And when I look in the report, it talks about some of the work that's been done so far. I think this was approved at the 2021 budget, but we've upgraded our firewalls and purchased an AI-based email scanner, and that there's further work under the capital budget that's going to be coming at the 2022 operating budget deliberations. So I know that's coming up, but can we get the Coles Notes version of that? Because I'm just very interested in what else needs to be done.
Sure.
Yeah.
I see Lawrence.
Lawrence, yeah.
through you, Chair, to Councilor Regima. Councilor Regima, that will be answered in the discussion or the in-camera item that Matt's presenting in a short while. We've asked for additional funding to enhance cybersecurity through primarily the operating side, because we had some base money in our existing budget in the IT to do the basics, but we've asked for additional funding through the operating side. So Matt will provide council not only a current status update, actions to date, and he'll provide you a quick summary of what the intended actions are going forward to enhance cybersecurity for here at the town, including the systems that we have in place as well. So I would hold that question till Matt has a chance to answer for the cyber presentation. I think he'll answer all of your questions and then some.
That makes sense. Thanks very much. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mikulik, you are next.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. Through you to Syed, is it possible, given, adding to a Councillor or a Deputy Mayor Russell's concern about the website, is it possible to run two websites at the same time, with one being the main one? What I found with the last website upgrade was I preferred the old website better, and it took, I just preferred it. And there was a way to go to the old website using a website called Wayback Machine. Is there a way to do that as well?
So what I'm getting from you is to run two parallel websites. Is that you're asking, sir?
I don't know if this is possible or not. It's just something where, residents and folks are directed to a main website, but should you wish to go to your, current one, you could. Have you ever, it still runs this, it's called Wayback Machine and you can actually still go to the old website that the town of Lincoln had. I think it was back in 2017 or 2016 with archived data.
So, if the requirement has changed, if there is a requirement of change in design, structure, or any functionality, so we'll definitely discuss for that, and we will definitely, account for that. But so far, whatever the requirement we have collected, so that will be based on that. So it's all about, if there's a change in requirement, because we always go with the requirement collection. So whatever the requirement is signed off, we have to go for that design first. So if you are proposing a new design, so we will definitely take up as a new requirement if that is the kind of a need. But so far, that is not something that has been brought up to, in that sense. So if there is a need of change in requirements, so definitely we can, consider that first.
Mr.
I'm not an expert in this field. I just raised a question just from what I know that's currently.
Well, for sure. Need is need, and you don't have to be, expert for sure. That's not your job. But if you feel like if that's the design that you guys are looking for, so end of the day, we will have to make that possible, provided there are no other related obligations. So if this is a requirement, so we will definitely reach out to the requirement team and see what exactly the next requirement is, what kind of change is required, and if that can be managed within existing budget. So there are many other factors that we need to check, because whenever there is a change always carries some kind of budgetary requirement change as well. So there the need not necessarily always fixed into the existing budget, existing set of project rollout. So we have to check all those things, and then we will get back to you. If there is really requirement of a near change.
Appreciate that.
Oh, I'm going to go, Councilor. I'm going to go to Mr. Gianni first, and then Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Chair. And Councilor Miko, good question. And say thanks for laying the foundation on that. Councilor, to alleviate any concerns, our goal is to make a smoothless transition from a current website to our new website. And to the point where any functionality that a resident may be looking for in a past website will all be present in our new website. There shouldn't be a need to go back to anything in the past. So I'm confident that the team we've assembled and the working group that we've gone out to and engage our colleagues around the community, around the town hall, but also our engagement with the community will ensure that our new website will reach all concerns and be able to be a smoothless transition. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Wagner, go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks. I had a great lead in, great question, Councillor. I do agree with Paul. In essence, we're trying to solve a problem where people are saying our functionality and usability of our website is not there. Our key driver, our key outcome that we want to achieve is to make sure that the information or the content is searchable, is available for residents. It's ease of navigation or use. Continuing on with the old site, which we already have complaints on, may not make the most sense. It's something that we can obviously look at, but I don't think it's going to be effective as long as we, as Paul said, as long as we move things over that people are looking for, as long as we make it seamless and include all the right information, whether it's the search functions, whether it's the policies that Julie's working on. I think that's key, and I think that's where we want to go with this one.
Excellent. Councillor McLeod, you're still up. You're good? All right. Mary Ston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very good to see this report come forward. It's so core to the business that we do. I think this question may have to be answered by Madam Clerk. It's about the electronic records and whether this transition will support eScribe in the future. And Julie, I'm specifically referring to the addition of appendices where you can, where council can access prior decisions or reports that may have been produced. Will that be an outcome of this at all?
Sure, yeah. So we are assessing a few vendors right now. So eScribe is one of the feature that one of the vendor is doing with the integration. So that comes as an integration. So we are definitely taking care of that part as well, because I mean, if there is one functionality available, so why not once we go for a solution, so we try to find a solution that can provide the integration of the existing functionality and feature as well. So that is one thing that is also under consideration.
That's great. And thank you, Saeed. And it's good to have your expertise at the town. I have a question, Mr. Chairman, around redundancies. In the report, it identifies a number of areas that are either weak in terms of their ability to support or fast running out of date. And I'm just curious because I don't know how these changes occur, but is it necessary in every case for us to have a redundant system while we're making the switch over, or what's the thinking on that? I don't know who to ask that. Saeed, I'm going to start with you. You're apparently the expert.
Sure. So I agree. When we talk about the risk, but when we talk about the system, so redundant system needs to be available all the time. But there is always a cost of making the backups and all these kind of planning. So redundant system always helpful, always be, I mean, available, should be available, but not all the time, because there is a specific type of budget required for making those kind of backup plans. But that does not mean we are not making sure that there is a redundant backup for everything. So we are making sure that everything should have a redundant backup. And in case of any failure, any downgrade, or any downfall, we should have a backup plan. And the way I plan, so I try to go not for one backup, always go for plan B and plan C as well. So that's down the line, you will see that.
And so when we're looking at costs, Saeed, we need to keep in mind that, or will you be identifying when we're also building a redundancy, because that has to have an impact on the cost, as you say.
Yeah, so there are two types of redundant system available in the market. One is mirror copy of the system. So those definitely double the price, or at least 1.5% impact on the price as well. But there are other ways of making the redundant system as well, so which we call soft redundant system. So I'm literally going for on those kind of policies where we can save money as well as we can make available those budgets, those systems as well. So every system that I'm going to work should have that kind of redundant plan as well. So we should have some kind of backups, but that backup will not be bringing up an entire new system, but system within a system. So sometimes those involve policies, sometimes those involve processes, sometimes those involve procedures. So many times with a good process, good policies, we able to provide good redundant system. So in my past experience, what I noticed, There are technology available, there are things available, there are hardware available, but just because of bad processes, we're not able to take full benefit of that existing infrastructure. So, I mean, if we going for a good processes, good procedures, so we can take full benefit of existing infrastructure. So that's right now our focus is.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. My last question, Mr. Chairman, is all of this technology and making it available for clients of quite a range of ages, I would say. And age has nothing to do with how interested or skilled people can be. But if the goal is to make clients more independent and to ensure that their time is really paramount, what do we do for those people that really just want to come into the town hall? What do you think that split's going to be in terms of those that will be functioning digitally and those that will still want to come to the town hall?
Would like to tackle that question. Is that you, Lawrence? I see your hand up.
Thank you, Councilor Chair McPherson. To the mayor, I don't think we'll ever get rid of the option to allow our residents to come into town hall. And I can think of, paying your property tax bill or your water bill. There'll always be people that will want to have the personal interaction and such. I do see that as a declining option or choice for many as people get busier with their day-to-day lives, as they get more and more comfortable with technology, as generations move on. I can speak to my kids. They can manage a tablet and computer faster than I. So those people in my kids in 20, 30 years will probably never set a foot into town hall. But myself, I will still set a foot into town hall. So over time, I do see it ebbing, but I do not see us ever stopping it, because if one person asks, I need to make sure that there's enough service for our residents, because in the end, it's all about customer service and making sure we provide the supports needed to ensure they get what they need and what they essentially pay for via their taxes.
All right, thank you very much, Lawrence. I think you've done a great job. Your team's done a great job presenting all of these issues. It's a very vital time in the future of the town, and a lot of good planning has gone into this. So thank you very much. Look forward to what's coming down the road. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I would also like to thank Syed and John Brown and of course Lawrence for the report. Great report, and it certainly looks like we are moving a lot of major stones here. A lot of things that are making us slower, and I think we're going to be faster, in the very near future, and be better communicators. So. Nice work, and timely too as well. Having this report in October as we head into the budget process. It's nice to see, what we've accomplished here in 2021, or what your group has accomplished in 2021, and what you see for not just next year, but 2 years down the road. So, great report. So, that being said, there is no further discussion. I have a motion moved by Councilor Mikulik that Council receive and file for information report FN-18-21 regarding the information technology project status update. I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to call up the vote. Devon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And Councilor McPherson?
Yes.
Councilor Mikulik?
Yes.
Councilor Pachariva?
Yes.
Councilor Reimer?
Yes.
Councilor Rajima?
Yes.
Councilor and Deputy Mayor Russell?
Yes.
Councilor Timmers?
Yes.
And Mayor Easton?
Support.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you, Devon. There being no additional reports to consider for General Business and Finance Committee agenda, we have now concluded the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. We will now rotate to allow Councilor and Chair J.D. Pachariva to assume the chair at this time for the Community Services and Infrastructure Development Committee agenda.
Thank you, Chair McPherson. Community service and infrastructure this evening. It's a case of feast or famine. Last month we had just a couple minutes to accept, and tonight we've got a bunch of meaty stuff. So I'm going to get rolling. So there's no registered delegations this evening for community service and infrastructure. We've got a couple of items, 8.2 in the consent agenda, inclusive of item 8.2.1, active transportation advisory committee minutes of July 29th, 2021, and item 8.2.2, the age-friendly advisory committee minutes of September the 2nd, 2021. Would any member of council like to remove any of these items from the consent agenda? I see none. So there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councilor McPherson that council receive and file for information the consent agenda inclusive of item 8.2.1, the active transportation advisory committee minutes of July 29th, 2021, and item 8.2.2, age-friendly advisory committee minutes of September the 2nd, 2021. I will now ask our deputy clerk to call out the vote. Devan?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Patriva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you very much, Devan. So now we're going to delve into the reports. And our first report tonight is the long-awaited Rittenhouse Road Reconstruction Project Tender Award. So item 8.3.1, report PW 2621, Rittenhouse Road Reconstruction Tender Award. Do members of council have any questions or comments on this? I see none. Oh, I see two. Okay, Councilor Miklick, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Patriva. Sorry, I was a little late there. Through you to our Director of Public Works, just similar to other projects that have gone considerably over budget, given times, and without really knowing what this project is encompassing in terms of how it's going to look or if there's extras, has there been any consideration to go back to the tender winner to look at possible cost savings with this project?
Through you, Chair Patriva, to Councillor Miklick. No, there hasn't. There really isn't any significant cost-saving measures to be found here. I think, if I can speak to a couple items that have increased the overall project cost estimate to date. After the project budget was approved back in 2020, a Schedule B Class EA was triggered for the need to upsize the large box culvert under Rittenhouse Road for Prudhome's Creek, and as well associated creek works downstream. So that additional cost, it's probably in the neighborhood of about $700,000, was added to the overall project scope. So we're seeing that cost increase right now in this report that you're looking at tonight. So that is a reason, one of the reasons the costs are higher, and also just what we've been experiencing in the general market conditions, as it relates to the disruption in the supply chain around underground infrastructure materials. This project has a lot of sewer replacement, storm sewer construction. So we're seeing increased costs as well in those areas that weren't probably anticipated pre-COVID, if you will. So there is a lot of uncertainty in the market right now around the supply of materials, even labor costs, et cetera. So those factors, are what we are seeing here tonight.
Thank you for that response. Through you, Chair Patriva. I'm struggling a little bit with this, the cost of the materials. given the fact that we were able to come in under budget with the First Street sewer upgrades and road reconstruction, that project was able to come under budget. And I don't understand if it's different materials or what exactly is the difference here as far as the construction materials and the shortages and that. How does that differ?
Yeah, sure. Through Chair Patrieva to Councillor Mikulik. So, I mean, a couple comments maybe around that. We did call that First Avenue tender earlier this summer. And the First Avenue project is a water main project only in terms of underground infrastructure. It's a lot more straightforward than Rittenhouse Road. Rittenhouse Road is a full sanitary sewer replacement. There's a new whole storm sewers system being constructed because we're curbing the road, filling in ditches, putting in storm sewers. So comparison wise, there's a lot more scope and material required for the Rittenhouse Road project, if that helps at all.
I appreciate that. It's just, I didn't really see any of the streetscaping in the report. All I really saw was like a red line outlining the road itself, but not any of the features that the road may have. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Councilor Mikulik. If it helps, I mean, the first iteration of this report, when we received it about a year ago, had those items in there, the sidewalks on both sides and trees and all that kind of jazz. So maybe you could, go back, take a look, because I know that that was a lot. The things to make it safe, right? To slow pedestrians down, the chicanes, the raised crosswalks, all of those things, the added substantial cost to the project, and we're detailed in our first package. So, Councilor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm down a bit of the same road as my ward colleague, and it's a bit of a deja vu here. Shortly after we have approved a significant project, so I'm going to ask the question: did we look at some of the things that we found savings in that previous project? Things like, I believe it was fill. We changed the fill that we were using and went to a more cost-effective fill, and things such as, I don't know if there, and I didn't go back to the previous report to check this out, but I didn't know if there was decorative lighting in this one, and if we would look at more standard lighting. So through you, Mr. Chair, to the Director of Public Works.
Through you, Chair Patrieva to Councillor McPherson. Good questions. In this particular project, we don't have the same decorative elements, if you will, similar to what we did on the Jordan Village project as it relates to decorative streetlights. Rittenhouse Road, we're looking at more just your typical conventional streetlights in that regard. As far as the fill, we've been working with our geotechnical engineers, and what we've tendered is what's recommended for that specific application based on the local soil types and the servicing that's proposed for Rittenhouse Road. So we have looked at that, and the recommendations that have come back from our experts is what we're going with in terms of the tender. So we have looked at, where we could save cost savings prior to tendering, and getting the results from our Jordan Village project. We wanted to make sure before we went out for tender, before we issued the Rittenhouse Road tender, that we tried to look at where we could head off any additional costs. So that has been looked at in terms of the tender package that we're looking at tonight.
So it doesn't sound like we're making the same change that we made over in Jordan with the fill, and where I believe we found some pretty significant change in costing. So, I think that this project is close to double what was budgeted. I understand that there was a a pretty significant cost in the culvert, I believe, that's coming forward that wasn't expected, but is about a $700,000 hit. But I would like to have seen us, take some similar approaches that we took in trying to gain any kind of cost savings that we can in this project as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Councilor McPherson. Mr. Wagner, would you like to shed a little light on this discussion?
For you, Chair, to Councilor McPherson. I suggest that we look and consider the Jordan Village is unique in the fact that the bids that came in were quite different in size and price. In this case, you have multiple bids coming at similar price. So when you're trying to look at, potential cost adjustments or the like, it's not very likely. I would also suggest that when you start negotiating every contract, without having those terms and conditions up front in the actual RFT, it could potentially put you into bad faith and in essence, have vendors shy away from dealing with you if they know that you're going to come back every single time to negotiate every single contract. I think where appropriate, we will try to do that. And I believe when we mentioned about the Jordan Village, we would look at different opportunities, whether it's best and final offer or say market index pricing and such. In this case, this RFT was a little bit ahead of the game before we could add some of those, but we will look to create some of those flexibilities or some of those enhancements in contracts or tenders going out in the future where significant or larger size. But I don't suggest that we do this on a regular basis. And as I said, Jordan Village was a unique animal that also demonstrated that there was wide price variances. In this one, I don't think that's the case.
Well, thank you, Mr. Director. And I guess my comment to that would be that if you looked at the quotes that we did get from the three bidders on the other project, they were all, I would say, fairly close. Yes, they were all significantly higher than the budgeted number, but in a smaller project that this is, I think that all of the bidders are significantly over our budget, and I would agree with you that we can't be challenging every single bid. So maybe there's some things we need to reconsider when we are putting these packages together, that if we have items that we have seen in previous bids that are cost savings, I think we maybe want to push our consultants to some of these other items that we've seen as areas that will save us some money. Thank you, Mr. Director, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Chair Councilor McPherson. I was just doing some quick math there with my calculator, but I didn't get to it. But I mean, the first three bids, I mean, you're looking at a difference of roughly $200,000 on a $4 million project. So I mean, if one came in and then the other one's virtually high, and they're in the ballpark. So given the items that staff pointed out with the overages and the shortages and of materials, it kind of is what it is right now. So as we go forward and let's look at doing a better job when we throw out these tenders going forward. So we have a motion moved by Councilor Reimer to receive and file report PW 26-21 regarding the Rittenhouse Road Reconstruction Project tender award, and approve the contract award for the Rittenhouse Road Reconstruction Project to Alfred Beam Excavating Limited for the amount of $4,138,224.90, and approve that the firm of Upper Canada Consultants Limited be retained to provide engineering services as outlined in the report, and approve the mayor and town clerk to sign and seal the contract documents on behalf of the municipality. I will now ask our deputy clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councilor McPherson?
Yes.
Councilor Micklek?
Yes.
Councilor Patriva?
Yes.
Councilor Reimer?
Yes.
Councilor Regima?
Yes. Yes.
Councilor and Deputy Mayor Russell?
Yes.
Councilor Timmers?
Yes.
And Mayor Easton.
Support.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you, Devan. We will now consider item 8.3.2, Report PW 30-21, Proposed Expanded Sidewalk Winter Maintenance Program. Our Director of Public Works, Mr. Dave Graham, will be providing an overview for us. Prior to proceeding with the presentation, I will ask Council proceed with a majority vote to expend the speaking time. I have the motion moved by Councillor Mikulik. Devan, go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik.
Yes.
Councillor Patriva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Regima.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell.
Yes.
Councillor Timmers.
Yes.
And Mayor Easton.
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thanks, Devan. Okay, Mr. Graham, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Pachariva, and I'd like to thank Mayor Easton and members of council tonight to give me the opportunity to provide a presentation on the proposed expanded winter maintenance program for our sidewalks in the town.
Give.
Then can you pull it up? It's actually not showing up on my screen.
No problem.
Seems to be happening tonight.
Okay. And can you see that okay?
Yes, thanks, Devan. Next slide, please. So the purpose of tonight's presentation, I'd like to provide a summary of the proposed expanded sidewalk winter maintenance plan, provide some estimated costs and an implementation plan for expanding to do all of the town's sidewalks for winter maintenance, and review next steps. Next slide, please. So this proposed plan aligns with a number of council's key strategic priorities: connected communities, definitely integrated mobility and active transportation support, resilient community. It's an opportunity to promote, a healthy and safe community under our vibrant community, drive economic potential and community well-being, and welcoming community, improve social and economic inclusion. Next slide, please. So some background. So earlier this year in March, staff had advised council that a review of the town's current sidewalk winter maintenance program was planned, and objectives with that, we wanted to examine the feasibility of expanding the program to include all of the town-owned sidewalks. And further, it was recommended that a working group be created with representatives from both the active transportation and age-friendly citizen advisory committees to provide input into the process. And I mean, at this time, I would also like to thank our citizen advisory committee representatives for participating in this process. They dedicated their time to this and provided a lot of valuable input to help us form this plan that we're looking at here tonight. Next slide, please. So the existing sidewalk winter maintenance program that the town currently provides is we provide maintenance on town facility sidewalks, sidewalks to town-owned property adjacent to parks, cemeteries, sidewalks adjacent to regional roads, a lot of the higher priority sidewalks within the community where we have school zones, downtown areas, senior areas. We also do sidewalks that link other sidewalks such as walkways, and there's a number of bylaw exempt sidewalks that we're also clearing. Next slide, please. And for all the other remaining municipally owned sidewalks across the town, it's the property owner's responsibility to maintain the sidewalk along their frontage. And that this bylaw has been in place since the 1970s. The working group has undertaken a review of the current program, again, with the goal of developing a winter maintenance plan that would make all municipal sidewalks, snow removal, the responsibility of the town. And through this process, we've also consulted with other municipalities who are doing winter maintenance sidewalk plans as well for their entire communities. Next slide, please. So the proposed expanded plan development of this plan involved a number of key steps. The first step we did was a lot of data gathering. So looking at weather data, getting a better handle on our overall sidewalk inventory, looking at future network additions. We've built growth into this as well, looking at our growth, reviewed the level of service. And again, that was in consultation with the working group. We also had resident engagement on a dedicated Speak Up Lincoln page, and also past feedback from the town's current program that we do now. Next slide, please. And again, industry consultation, we reviewed plans from other municipalities and again, reached out to those other municipalities for more information on what we could learn as we look at ours. And the final development of our plan, again, it included detailed route planning, mapping of our sidewalk assets, budgeting projections, and again, future planning anticipating growth. Next slide, please. So municipal sidewalk network makeup categories for the town of Lincoln. So we have sidewalks, and again, sidewalks are basically defined as, the sidewalks in the road allowance, so along our roadways. We also have walkways, and walkways are technically, sidewalks that would go between streets, may not be beside a street, and they're typically, considered or referred to as catwalks, pathways, etc. Then we have trails, paved trails. Trails are typically considered a recreational asset, which will allow all types of non-motorized forms of transportation. And when considering winter maintenance on trails, they can be considered redundant if you have another nearby existing sidewalk system or walkways that could provide an alternate route for users. Next slide, please. So the table there on the right-hand side provides a bit of a breakdown of our different sidewalk categories. At this time, staff recommends that trails not be maintained in the winter season. And again, basically when we have another nearby alternate sidewalk or walkway route option that exists for transportation for users. Also, there can be environmental impacts when you're using de-icing materials such as sand and salt. A lot of the older trails aren't constructed or weren't constructed with winter maintenance in mind. Some of them can be a bit narrow, steep hills, etc. And again, to help reduce the overall program costs. But I think it's important when we talk to a lot of other municipalities, we did learn that that seems to be consistent with what others are doing with their trails. They typically don't maintain them in the wintertime. But again, I think, I would advise too that as we move forward, our proposed expanded winter maintenance sidewalk plan, we need to remain flexible and adjust as needed and adapt to our community needs. Next slide, please. So the proposed expanded program. So the intent here is to do the remainder of all the town-owned sidewalks that we don't do now. And we also want to provide a framework for adding additional sidewalks and walkways in the future as the town grows and as we construct more sidewalks. This chart here on the right-hand side of the screen, kind of can give a bit of an overview of our current program. We do about 27 kilometers of sidewalks. And with the expanded program, we're looking at moving to do approximately 72 kilometers of sidewalks. So a significant service level increase to this program. Next slide, please. So levels of service review is really important and was part of this. Again, the working group played a very important role in helping us assess and formalize our current level of service that we're doing now. With some key guiding principles, I think the most important one that the citizen advisory committees and the reps from those were very helpful with was basically community importance, and understanding how the community is using the network is one of the most important parts of being able to prioritize the level of service. So for example, high traffic sidewalks, in commercial areas, school districts, senior areas, other high pedestrian use areas, they need to receive a higher level of service in comparison to, sidewalks on lower volume roads that wouldn't see the same demand for usage. We also want to look at environmental stewardship as well as when we're looking at levels of service. Next slide, please. So when we look at levels of service, our primary sidewalk classification, again, that would represent the highest priority sidewalks, higher volumes of users. And again, if you think of those in downtown areas, along regional roads, busy roads, school routes, senior areas, etc. And primary sidewalks are cleared first, having the highest priority, and they're cleared throughout a snowfall event. And then we have secondary sidewalk classification. And again, these would be for your lower volume sidewalks on more lower volume local roads, and they would have less usage in comparison to the primary sidewalks. And again, secondary sidewalks would be cleared after the primary sidewalks have been cleared, and they're typically cleared or started to be cleared after the storm event has stopped. And this aligns with what we're currently doing now with our sidewalk program as well. Next slide, please. So route planning with the expanded program. So route planning is key in delivering a successful program to the community. A lot goes into the route planning. Obviously, the level of service. Routes are planned to provide the desired level of service in the most efficient way possible. And a very important factor that goes into route planning is the weather. So the weather conditions and the types of storms and types of events will basically control how long it takes to reach the level of service desired. To properly plan, there needs to be an understanding of the anticipated weather, and also weather conditions can affect the speed of the equipment. So we have to take all that into account when we're looking at route planning. Next slide, please. So weather patterns and data trending. So again, a key factor to this plan and looking at planning our routes and also looking at budget projections. We looked and assessed a lot of weather data, a lot of historical data to try and get some really good projections on what to expect and what to plan for. We looked at, the number of events, the frequencies, the severities of different types of events, looked at freeze thaw cycles, also looked at freezing rain. And again, looking at a lot of historical data trending to do this. Next slide, please. And here's just an example of a graph. Again, when we were looking at a lot of our historic data, looking for trends, looking for, what types of events are typically expected to look at building a statistical, average. So we looked at, 20 years here from 1981 to 2000 as an example. Next slide, please. And again, here's another example for the past 20 years, looking at from the early 2000s until last year. Again, just trying to get a really good trend on historical weather that we could experience in this area, and we used all local data from Environment Canada to do this assessment. Next slide, please. So to provide the, the best budget forecast, it's necessary to basically predict what future winter weather could look like based on historical data and historical trending. So we used, the last 20 years and did a statistical projection on what future winters may look like. And that has been considered and built into the plan. Next slide, please. Another important part, in addition to modeling the weather, we also want to look at the machines and the speed, because the plan also has to consider this, especially when you get heavier accumulations of snow. Is it wet snow, etc., and all that can affect the timing of clearing sidewalks. So that has been looked at and built into this plan in terms of ensuring that our routes can achieve the desired level of service under all different types of weather conditions, whether it's heavy, wet snow, etc. That can slow your operations down. We have looked at that and made sure that we can still maintain our levels of service with the proposed route planning. Next slide, please. So the expanded program, again, proposes to provide winter maintenance to all town of Lincoln sidewalks in the community. This would be a new service for residents in the town of Lincoln, and obviously would require additional funding because we don't do that currently. To help minimize budget impacts, to look at expanding our sidewalk winter maintenance program, we're looking at phasing in the costs into our budget to help minimize impacts. We're also recommending that we would use a winter reserve fund to help fund this program. And again, that would be looking at budget surpluses where we have light winters, and that could help offset budget pressures when we experience heavier winters. So we would definitely recommend using a winter reserve fund for this program. The chart here, and it's included in the report, talks about the proposed estimated program costs. And again, we're looking at phasing in the budget needs over the 2022 and 2023 budgets to help get us to a point where we can transition to do all the sidewalks in the town. Next slide, please. And I think this slide's really important to highlight, because anytime we look at our levels of service or increasing levels of service, we want to ensure that we're looking at growth and looking at what those costs could look like in the future, and make sure we're preparing for that as we move forward. So this table here, what we've done is we've looked at our 10-year capital forecasts. We've got a lot of road reconstruction projects over the next 10 years, and in a lot of those projects, we're going to be constructing and implementing new sidewalks, which again is great, supporting council's commitment to active transportation, but we are going to be increasing our sidewalk assets. We also need to look at future development, and where we have future development, and Prudham's is a great example, but we have other developments as well, where we are going to be getting additional new sidewalks and increasing our sidewalk asset inventory. So what we've done here is we've built that into the program and wanted to show that so that we're prepared for that. And we can also look at what the cost of the program will be as we expand our sidewalk network to keep up with the winter maintenance. Next slide, please. So next steps. So what we're looking for is council's support on moving to an expanded winter maintenance program, which would include doing all of the town sidewalks. For this coming winter, so from November to April of 2022, the plan would be that we'd continue with our current program. However, we would include additional funding in the 2022 budget to help us transition to the expanded program next year. And we would also include additional funding in the 2023 budget to be able to be in full transition. So the goal would be for next winter season, we would be in a position to transition to do all the sidewalks in the community. And that's what we're proposing. We also want to continue to promote this proposed expanded program on the Town of Lincoln's dedicated Speak Up Lincoln page for sidewalk maintenance in the wintertime. We want to continue to get feedback from residents, get their views on this and input as well. So we definitely are going to continue with that initiative as well. Next slide, please. So thank you. Here to answer any questions or comments that committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Graham, for that fulsome presentation on snow removal. And Deputy Mayor Russell, you lead us off, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dave, for that presentation. I know that this has been something that has been talked about for a while, and a lot of time and effort has gone into this by you and your staff. So I do appreciate it. The one thing that I am concerned about and maybe a little disappointed with some understanding is that the multi-use trail lack of clearing. And in some respect, I understand the sensitivity regarding salting, de-icing, completely understand that, especially as those are very close to some of those water amenities and sensitive areas. But the one thing that we hear about the most from residents is not necessarily about sidewalks being cleared. It's about the trails that they want to use and the importance of them, because it actually gets them away from all the houses and gets them kind of in an area that they can kind of enjoy nature, take a break from the day to day. Especially now that we have all of these, this wonderful new Conkle Creek Trail. I see that the Meadowwood Trail, which adjoins it to that park down to Green Lane, is part of the secondary clearing plan. I know we are going to get a barrage of questions in Ward 1, probably in Ward 2 as well, about why aren't we clearing that trail. And I understand too that the snowpack aspect of it, again, it does provide the ability to use it to some degree, but I know we have the Jacob nearby. I had a recent visit to the Jacob to talk to some of the residents. A lot of them were talking about how close the trail is and how they're looking forward to using it over the winter. And it's just something that I want to see if there's anything we can do, not to go to the level of the salting and the de-icing, but is there anything that we can do further to keep that clear, judging by the parameters of why a multi-use trail may not be cleared. Again, the steepness of the hills, tight corners, that doesn't seem to fall in line with Conkle or Bartlett Creek Trail. So I'm just wondering if you could comment if that's still a possibility to revisit for this year.
Through you, Chair Patrieva, to Councillor Russell. I mean, it is. I mean, I think what staff's suggesting is, and again, kind of based on what we're learning from other communities, that trails, multi-use trails, are typically not maintained in the wintertime. They're considered more of a recreational asset usage, and I understand people do want to use them, so I'm not trying to say that. I think, the focus has been, sidewalks are really important for people to get kind of from point A to point B. And that's kind of the difference that's being considered, whereas a multi-use trail, people are going out and walking for more recreational enjoyment. But again, I think, we want to get input from the community. We want to promote this on Speak Up Lincoln and get feedback and, maybe see what people are thinking. We can definitely share our views on what we're doing and why, but that's basically staff's current recommendation to bring forward for committee anyways.
Okay. Thank you, Director Graham. Mr. Chair, a quick follow-up.
Go ahead.
Is there time then this year through Speak Up Lincoln to gather enough information to make that decision whether or not to clear multi-use trails this year?
I mean, we have a page up right now, and we can definitely promote that and get more input. I think at this point in time, staff's recommending we don't, but we can always, transition to that if we need to. It will cost more money in the budget, but I think it'd probably be a good idea to get more public feedback. We can do better communication or more communication on maybe why we're not doing trails versus sidewalks, and sort of, provide more explanation on that. But at this point, that's what we're recommending.
Thank you, Director Graham.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Russell. And maybe a follow-up to that, Adam, might be, we've got counters out on Cockle Creek. So we can establish a baseline of the number of people that are using it. And, and pardon the pun, it's the path of least resistance right now to Green Lane. So, if the numbers will tell us if there's a heck of a lot of people using it. And every time I've been on it, there has been. So I think the proof might be in the pudding that, empirically it will say that, we got to do this. So let's encourage everyone to walk that, to roll it, to ride it, you name it. So, Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Through you, Chair Pachariva, I think the members of council, and I'm going to ask both Jillian and Dave maybe to take away some of what we heard this evening, and I think report back to council. This year's cleaning program will match last year's, and I think if there's an opportunity to add something like Conkle Creek, staff will go away and talk about that, and I think it'll be important. What we're talking about here really is November 2022, and a broad kind of program around snow clearing on our trails. I think there's some operational challenges when we don't have asphalt down on them, but I'm going to suggest we provide clarification because I think it's important to do that. I want to make sure internally between community services and public works, we're talking about what trails are included in that and what last year's program was, so that moving forward, we kind of accomplish and meet the expectations that are out there from residents. So if we could have a little bit of time and report back to council, maybe in a memo of some sort, clarifying that for you. But I hear loud and clear a service that our residents expect, and we want to make sure we're meeting those obligations.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mike. You hit the nail on the head, meeting our residents' expectations. So thank you very much for going to take that under advisement. Councillor Rinchema.
Thank you, Chair Pachariva. Sorry, I mispronounced that, stumbled on it. This is really exciting. Feels like we're growing up when we're getting to the point where we feel it's important to provide this kind of service, and that we're gonna look into it. This is great, and I'm excited about it. I remember Director Graham telling me about it, and I know people are going to be really excited about this because it's really, really hard to get out there and clear the sidewalk in front of your house to the level that's expected for people to be able to pass through. It's not all, people go out to work during the day. Sometimes it's tough. So I'm excited about this. And I'm also really glad that you have consulted the Active Transportation Committee and the Seniors Committee. What's it called? Somebody help me out. Age Friendly Committee. I'm going to, we had the presentation from the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee tonight. Can we please make sure that we also consult the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, because there's a lot of considerations that none of us think of when it comes to these sorts of things that might seem obvious. So I appreciate that. I see you taking notes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you very much, Chair Pachariva. I just have some comments, not really questions, but it's just, I'm hearing a lot of positive feedback from what appears to be people that have sidewalks in front of their houses. I don't personally have a sidewalk in front of my house. And, I'm just wondering if there's going to be, is there an increase in NPAC or assessed value to offset these costs? Because traditionally, the more services you receive, the greater, there's an expectation to pay. I say this also because I have personally out of town properties that have sidewalks that I have to pay to maintain currently. For me to have the city in these out of town properties now plow or shovel for free, I think that would be a benefit that, should I as a taxpayer be paying more for? Is there any consideration to that? Has there been any feedback with that respect?
Who's going to take this one? Mr. Kirkopoulos, Mr. Graham, Mr.
Sure,
Wagner? We got a little bit of
through-
everything here.
Through you, Chair Patrieva to Councillor Mikulik, maybe I'll take a stab at it. I think what you really have to think about, municipal sidewalks are town infrastructure. So, they are town sidewalks. They're owned by the town. So we really, in my view, we do have a responsibility to maintain them. It's similar, you could look at it similar to maintaining a roadway, right? We own the roads. We should maintain them for the community. I think that's probably the best way to look at this, is that these are town-owned sidewalks, town-owned assets, and we should be clearing them.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. I just look at it from strictly a cost perspective, and who will be paying. And I'm just talking for all taxpayers. So that's the area of my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. And then again, and pardon the pun, it's the slippery slope of doing it versus not doing it. Director Graham pointed out it's a town asset. We're asking our residents to undertake it. Sometimes it's not being done, and the head of the ugly head of liability then raises its shadow. What happens if someone has a trip and fall on a town asset that wasn't looked after? So it's Pandora's box that you're opening. Grimsby has done theirs for a number of years. I like Councillor Rinchema's comment. We're growing up. We're taking this over. My humble opinion, it's long overdue, especially given some of our sidewalks that are road facing, like very close. It's almost impossible for some of these people to do them after the plow has come by and filled them in. And so good on you, Mr. Graham. VC, would you mind taking the chair? I just have a couple questions to Mr. Graham, because this is near and dear to my heart, this one.
I'm running in from the bullpen. Chair Patrieva, go ahead.
Thank you, left-hander. So I will make it quick. Mr. Graham, just a couple things. We're going to have this contract split between town staff and a contractor. And for the longest time, the contractor was able to use equipment they saw fit. Are we finally going to match up these two groups to have the same equipment doing the same job?
Yes,
Director
yes. Thanks to you, Councillor Patrieva. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we prepare to move to an expanded program, we'll be looking at all the equipment requirements.
Okay.
And issuing a new tender and putting out all those
Terrific.
requirements that we want, for sure.
Awesome. And one more, if I may, Chair Reimer. And this enthralls me. Pelham in the fall goes out and puts in stakes, markers, especially where there's changes. So in sidewalks. So long gone are the days of straight shot sidewalk. So there's twists and turns and things like that. So which would limit the sod replacement in the fall or in the spring that we usually encounter. So wondering if we've contemplated doing that, especially first time through or something, until, it's almost like that plow book where there's nuances with each route. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, through Chair Reimer to Councillor Patrieva, absolutely. I think if you look at the appendix in the report too, we've actually put it in we've tried to formalize the whole sidewalk operational plan, the expanded program. So we do have that in the sidewalk plan in the appendix. That will be a must in advance of winter clearing. We're going to be going out and putting, markers out, if you will, where we have alignment issues and walking that with contractors and our own staff. So it is definitely something we want to incorporate for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Graham.
Is that all?
That is
Chair
it.
Patrick?
Yes.
I will head into the dugout.
Back to
Take over.
You can shower. Your night's done, my friend. No, I might call on you again with, So there being no further discussion, I've got a motion moved by Councillor McPherson to receive and file report PW 30-21, proposed expanded sidewalk winter maintenance program. I will now ask our deputy clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Micklick?
Yes.
Councillor Patriva?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Rejima?
Yes.
Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Yes.
Mayor Easton?
Support.
Thank you, Chair. That carries.
Thank you very much, Savan. We will now consider item 8.3.3, report PW 32-21 Beamsville Truck Bypass Implementation Study Update. In attendance to speak to this item is our Director of Public Works, Dave Graham, Manager of Engineering Services, Walter Neubauer, and Regional Director, IBI Group, Ron Stewart. Prior to proceeding with the presentation, I will ask that Council proceed with the majority vote to extend the speaking time. I have the motion moved by Councillor Renchema.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Micklick?
Yes.
Councillor Patriva?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Rejima?
Yes.
Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Yes.
And Mayor Easton?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries, Chair.
Thank you, Devan. And just as a quick aside, I've asked our clerk that when we're reviewing our procedural bylaw, that going forward, maybe we increase the staff time to 10 minutes so we don't have to do this and extend the length of the meeting 5 times. So, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Patriva. And again, I'd like to thank Mayor Easton and members of council for giving us the opportunity this evening to provide a presentation on the Beamsville Truck Bypass Implementation Study final report.
Thank you. I will share my screen and, oh, Ron Stewart was able to make it in. Thank you. And just verifying that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah.
Next slide, please. So the purpose of tonight's presentation, we want to provide a summary of the final report. We want to provide an overview of the proposed implementation plan, provide some cost estimates looking forward, and review next steps. Next slide, please. So again, this project is really critical to council's strategic priorities under the connected community section, addressing truck traffic and road safety across Lincoln. This totally aligns with under our resilient community. Again, we want to develop and implement road safety initiatives such as speed reduction, traffic calming, and truck routes. Vibrant community, again, we want to drive economic potential and community well-being. And when we look at a welcoming community, we want to be a business-friendly environment. Next slide, please. So I think at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Ron Stewart, who is the regional director from the IBI group. He's going to lead us through the next few slides.
Okay, thank you. Can you confirm you can hear me?
All good, Ron.
Great, thank you. So how did we get here? Well, as mentioned by David, the truck traffic safety strategy is a high priority in the town. And in fact, in 2019, council passed a resolution regarding truck safety in Lincoln. That motion identified several concerns related to truck traffic and identified several action items, and the Beamsville truck bypass implementation study is a key element in response to that motion. The recommendation was developed through the town's transportation master plan, which was completed in 2019, with the objective being to redirect truck traffic from the downtown area of Beamsville. Next slide, please. Is this the long-term solution? Well, actually, the long-term solution dealing with some of the truck traffic challenges is to improve goods movement in the west portion of Niagara region by constructing a new north-south truck route escarpment crossing, that being the Park Road and Bartlett Avenue extension in Grimsby. And this image is from the Niagara Region Transportation Master Plan, and it shows the 3 proposed phases of dealing with goods movement in the west portion of Niagara region. Next slide, please. So in the interim, until that longer term solution is constructed, a key short-term solution for Lincoln is to implement the Beamsville truck bypass route. And it's important to note that in order to move forward with this short-term solution, the town, in partnership with Niagara Region, has completed this implementation study. Next slide, please. This image demonstrates the fundamentals of the truck bypass strategy. And I'll just point out some of the different colored lines. The what I'll call purple or maroon line on King Street and on Ontario Street, that's the route that the town of Lincoln would prefer to discourage truck movements, to put it mildly. Then we have the yellow line, and it shows how it's proposed that north-south movements through truck movements would make their way through Beamsville. And the blue shows how the east-west movements would make their way around Beamsville. And you can see through this plan that there is an emphasis on the use of Durham Road, South Service Road, Bartlett Road, and then it does impact the intersection of King and Mountain as part of the truck bypass strategy. Next slide, please. So you may ask, but what's involved in an implementation study? Well, to provide the highlights, we've looked at all the existing conditions and traffic data and collision data, et cetera, and all the background studies. There's been consultation with key stakeholder groups, including the town's active transportation committee. The truck diversion impacts were evaluated. We developed truck signage and enforcement strategies, performed intersection and corridor operational reviews. The impacts to the railway crossings have been assessed. A multi-use trail and a truck inspection lay-by have been incorporated into the plan for Bartlett Road, along with improved street lighting. A traffic noise study was completed, and just to summarize, it didn't identify any specific concerns. And an outcome has been preliminary high-level project cost estimates generated. Next slide, please. Stakeholder engagement. Who have we consulted? Well, this is a list. I won't read them off. You can see that there are a number of representatives within Town of Lincoln. We have the BIA, and then representatives from Niagara Region, MTO, the Trucking Association, the Railway, Go Transit, and aggregate companies, which gave us a good cross-section of input. Next slide, please. What did we hear from the stakeholders when we engaged them? Well, that it was important to review the safety and features of the level railway crossing, that at the intersection at King and Mountain, the ability for trucks to complete turns without mounting sidewalks and having any interaction with pedestrians was important, that it's important that trucks still be able to make local deliveries, that any kind of plan should include enforcement features. It should also include a community and local business communication strategy, and it should include separated active transportation elements in the design where feasible. Next slide, please. There's a lot on this slide, and so I'll try and give you a high-level summary. In order to assess the existing conditions, it was important to to take a good look at truck movements and what their origins are and what their destinations are. And so just as a breakdown, about 40% or just over 40% of the truck movements that you're seeing in the Beamsville area are within Lincoln. Just over 10% to or from North Grimsby. That leaves 45% that are longer distance trips, which are what we would definitely classify as through trips that need to be managed. And it should also be noted that when we did our assessment, we had more westbound traffic than eastbound traffic on King Street. And I should note that the analysis location that you'll see in the middle of the screen is King Street west of Bartlett. And we believe that that is an indicator of the practice of bypassing that westbound truck inspection station on the QEW. So anyway, we went to a lot of effort to really break down what are the trucks, where are they coming from, where are they going from, as opposed to speculating. Next slide, please. So when we did all of the assessment, we did a projection of the anticipated diverted daily truck volumes, looking at a 2024 horizon year, anticipating that the bypass routes could be constructed in that time frame. And so if we look at the table, the first line is the first row covers the existing routing for total trucks. And this is 24-hour two-way truck volume estimates, and we've rounded them a bit just to make it easier to read. And so right now, so in 2024, if there were no diversion, it is projected that the total trucks, two-way trucks on Ontario Street would be from 240 to 360, on Durham Road from 170 to 190, and on Bartlett Road from 250 to 300. So all of them would be carrying a significant amount of trucks. If we were to implement the bypass routing, we speculated that you could reasonably expect 75% of rerouting of the total trucks. And with that rerouting, you would have 130 trucks diverted from Ontario Street, and those trucks would then be redistributed, 10 to Durham Road and 120 to Bartlett Road. And you may wonder why there's such an emphasis to Bartlett Road. Well, and we'll show it in the plans later. Recall that Bartlett is shown as the connection to then reconnect to King Street and return to Mountain to carry on south of downtown Beamsville. So therefore, it would be more attractive for the diverted traffic. So this is the breakdown that we developed. Next slide, please. As part of our work, we identified improvements that would make the alternate routes attractive. And so we did a series of drawings, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm just going to provide a couple examples. So for example, at Durham and South Service Road, we identify a need to increase the curb radius and widen the roads with regrading of ditches and extending the culverts. And what you see, those lines, you see green lines and you see purple lines, those are the projected truck paths of trucks. And we use software and a system to demonstrate the path that trucks can safely make and the path that trucks need to make, and then identify what road geometry needs to be there in order to accommodate that. Next slide, please. Now we'll go to Bartlett Road in the vicinity of Green Lane. And so similarly, you can see the purple paths and the green paths to show the truck movements. Now, in this case, we've actually shown at the one intersection with Green Lane headed towards Ontario, we've actually suggested that the corner radius be reduced so that it discourages trucks turning there as opposed to encouraging or facilitating trucks turning there. We also have shown as part of the proposed improvements a multi-use trail to be incorporated. In this case, we've shown it on the east side, but that can be dealt with more specifically at the detailed design phase. And so we went through all of the network and provided this degree of assessment of what was needed from a road geometry and a traffic control perspective. Next slide, please. Of course, a very key intersection to all this is the King Mountain intersection, which is regional. And everybody knows it's tight geometry. You have commercial and residential land use. You have a grade on mountain. You have a number of competing demands. And so when we were working with Town of Lincoln and the region, typically you can have the comment, well, all the user groups are important. And we said, yes, they are, but we need to establish what we've called a hierarchy in terms of dealing with the approach to the intersection. And we also made an effort to separate what we'd call needs, which are frankly more important than wants, though of course all of them are desirable. So for example, the top level, the highest level was pedestrians, and that was a need to maintain the sidewalk widths and protect against vehicle encroachment. Then next was the bypass trucks, to make sure that it's feasible to make the westbound left turn and the northbound right turn. And I'll be showing this a bit on a plan in the next slide. Then it was maintain on-street parking for King Street businesses. Then it was general traffic to make sure that there's a reasonable buffer from turning trucks. There was non-bypass trucks to make sure that it's still feasible for non-bypass trucks to actually maneuver in the intersection. There was talk about buffered bike lanes, but again, we start to get into some constraints with geometry and road widths, and then loading areas in terms of access to businesses for deliveries. And so that was the hierarchy that we established. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed King Mountain intersection after we consider all of the needs. What you will notice is that we are showing the pedestrian crosswalks, and you can see them with the yellow lines, pulled back from the intersection to the east and to the south. And you recall from the other plans that I showed, the turning paths for the trucks are shown in purple and in green. And so you can see that this effort is made so that we can facilitate the westbound lefts from westbound King Street to go onto Mountain Road, and the northbound rights. And in order to reduce the potential for conflict with pedestrians, we're showing that the crosswalks and the stop bars would be pulled back from being right at the intersection, but still in close proximity to the intersection. And we've also shown the curb pushed out on the southwest corner to provide a bit of a parking bay and to prevent cars from trying to skirt around trucks that are trying to make their movements. I should say that at the working level, we had a meeting with Niagara Region, their traffic signal staff, to confirm that all of this was feasible, and they agreed at a general level it was feasible. And we talked about what would be required and the costs, etc. But again, this would have to be confirmed at the detailed design phase with further discussions with Niagara Region staff. Next slide, please. We then similarly provided recommended improvements at each of the locations. You can see we have the location summarized on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we've described the recommended improvements. My intention isn't to go through each and every one of them, but just to demonstrate that we performed a thorough review. Next slide, please. And this is yet a continuation of those recommendations. One of them is at the top, is that under future conditions in 2024, we predict that there would be a need to install traffic signals at the intersection of John and Bartlett. But again, the town could perform a traffic signal warrant study when it got closer to that time frame. Next slide, please. We then turn to the whole policies and strategies perspective and how to deal with how to deal with encouraging trucks to follow these bypass routes. A term that you'll hear is what we call self-enforcing. And it starts with the work that we've shown on some previous slides, which is to make Durham Road and Bartlett Road more attractive to trucks in terms of taking the certain route than Ontario Street. And then it would be supplemented by signage. And we've shown the use of permissive signage, which the town can do. And the town can also add to the bylaw, in addition to the green circle showing the route that the town wishes trucks to follow, it can be that it's mandatory that they follow those routes. That also can be supplemented by what we call a hybrid signage system, where we also show the red no trucks signage to reinforce that. Now, an issue that would have to be dealt with is that the region would have to implement any specific bylaws on regional roads, and the region is still reviewing their truck movement strategy or their philosophy. And so for now, the town of Lincoln would have to apply their permissive imperative signage strategy on town of Lincoln roads. Next slide, please. Another way in which truckers can be encouraged to follow the bypass routes is by providing truck route information. And that can include posting a truck route map on the Town of Lincoln website, working with Niagara Region and the province of Ontario to disseminate Town of Lincoln truck route information, and also working with the trucking industry to make sure that they are aware of the truck bypass strategy. Next slide, please. Other items that have been identified include scale avoidance, and we talked about that a bit earlier. And so the strategy would be to continue to work with the MTO enforcement branch to identify resource efficient and cost effective options to enforce the scale bypassing. For example, partnering with MTO to implement an additional camera monitoring pilot to assist with improved enforcement, and including funds in the 2022 budget. And with the issue of exceeding weight limit, vehicle weight limits, support Niagara Region Police training more officers in commercial vehicle safety. Next slide, please. So as part of the implementation study, one item that has been proposed is to include a truck inspection lay-by. And that was met with positively by enforcement staff. And so this example is on Bartlett Road, south of the rail crossing on the west side for southbound traffic. So if there were traffic that were bypassing the QEW, coming across perhaps on Green Lane and then coming north on Bartlett, that they could be intercepted, and there would be a safe location for enforcement officers to pull over trucks to perform truck safety enforcement. And so this is an example of what was provided as part of the implementation plan. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Ron. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and your team for all of the work that's gone into this study. If you look at the attached file report, you can see that, this is a summary of a lot of work and effort that's gone into this implementation study by your team. So thank you for that. And when we talk about study conclusions, it's a good news story for the town. Because with strategic planning, the Beamsville truck bypass, as recommended in the Transportation Master Plan, can be very successful in diverting trucks away from downtown Beamsville. And the existing road network can accommodate the proposed truck diversion with only straightforward upgrades to Durham Road, Bartlett Road, and the Niagara region intersections being required. A big thing that we've found through collaboration and consultation with our stakeholder groups is the importance of relationships with the Niagara region, Niagara Regional Police, the MTO, and other agencies and community partners to implement this study. We're going to continue to need to work with them to make this happen. Next slide, please. Estimated capital costs. So as part of the implementation study, we looked at how are we going to build this and what phases, but also what the costs were going to be. So in 2023, after we complete detailed design next year, we're looking to upgrade Durham Road. Estimated cost is $2.5 million. We're looking to upgrade Bartlett Road over a 2-year period in phases, 2024, 2025, for an estimated cost of $10 million. And at the same time as Bartlett Road is being upgraded, we're going to work with the Niagara region and ask them to make all the upgrades that are recommended in the implementation study on their intersections, and we estimate the cost to be $1 million. We'll note that these are high-level preliminary cost estimates, and the mandate from staff will be to really dig in at detailed design to see where there are opportunities for cost savings, to minimize property impacts, to minimize utility relocation impacts, take a look at the multi-use trail option, and various other things that we can do to reduce the costs. In 2022, in 2022, during 2023 capital budget deliberations, staff will report back with much more refined cost estimates for consideration. Next slide, please. So to summarize project next steps, in 2022, we plan to initiate detailed design and public consultation phase for upgrading both Bartlett Road and Durham Road. At the same time, we're going to look at developing truck bypass route mapping and look at other opportunities to leverage different available technologies to get the word out on what we're trying to accomplish here with this truck bypass. We're also going to ask the Niagara region to incorporate these recommendations into their operational and capital plans. In 2023, subject to budget approval, we'll upgrade Durham Road. In 2024 and 2025, we'll upgrade Bartlett Road, and the Niagara region will upgrade their intersections. And then in 2025, we plan to put in those permissive and hybrid sign strategies that Ron was talking about, and implement the truck bypass. Next slide, please. So thank you, Council, for your time today, and myself, Director Graham, and Ron will be happy to take any questions or receive any comments you may have.
Thank you very much, Walter and Ron, for the presentation. But before we go to the question period, we've got a little piece of, what is it called, Devan? I want to say administration or functionality or
Administration works for me, Chair.
Okay, administration from our deputy clerk. So go ahead, Devan.
Through you, Chair, thank you. We do need to waive the rules to extend the meeting beyond the hour until the agenda is finished. So I would require a mover for that, and then I can take a vote. Thank you, Councillor Regima. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Micklick?
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Regima?
Yes.
Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
and Mayor Easton.
Support.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Devan. So we trudge on. So Councillor McPherson, you are first in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Ron and to Walter for the presentation. This is very, very good, and a long time coming. So I've got two questions. One question is, why are we waiting until 2024 to start Bartlett? We've got detailed design that is going to be completed in 2022. We're starting Durham Road in 2023. If we were to start Bartlett in 2023 and finish in 2024, we could open the whole thing up in 2025 and have all of it, 2024, and have all of it, open for both ends of town. And the other thing that I'm thinking is that Bartlett will also obviously serve our car traffic as well. It's not going to be exclusive to trucks. We do have a lot of pressure that we're hearing about on Ontario Street. And if there is a viable option for cars that, has a light, is an updated road, and is a somewhat of a bypass for the cars, I think that folks would be willing to use Bartlett. So I'm just not seeing the timing of pushing Bartlett and Mountain to 2024 with the finish in 2025. So if I could put that through to you, Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate it.
You can, Mr. Graham, is that?
Thanks, Chair Patrieva, to Councillor McPherson. Great question. And I think, we're going to do our best to see if we can start, the construction earlier. Right now, we've looked at a 2-year detailed design phase for Bartlett Road, because Bartlett Road is a significant project. We're going all the way from King Street to the South Service Road. We've got Bartlett Creek and a bridge structure there to deal with. So we also have to work with CN on the CN crossing. So we're going to go with on this. I mean, if we can get the detailed design completed sooner and be constructing that road sooner, I think that's our objective. I think right now we've shown it as a sort of 2-staged approach where detailed design for Bartlett Road will go into 2023. But I definitely hear you on that. And I think another good point you raised is both Bartlett Road and Durham Road are really important investments for the town outside of truck traffic. So you're totally right. Our transportation master plan did identify investing in Bartlett Road as another good alternate north-south corridor for Beamsville, with the view to make it more, car friendly, more pedestrian friendly, and to help disperse traffic in the community. So the objective is to provide alternate routes for people, opposed to just, using Ontario Street, and to help manage future congestion. So I think that's a way that we need to look at it as well, is that we do need to invest in these important north-south routes for our community, just for general traffic management and as we look into the future.
So, Mr. Chair, just a follow-up comment. So, based on the numbers that Ron showed us, I would think that we would agree that we are going to get more trucks taken care of, so to speak, if we focus on Bartlett and then Durham Road. And I'm not suggesting you push Durham Road off, because I think it's far enough away from Bartlett that we could do them simultaneously. So Certainly not an expert on design, and not knowing, how long a good design takes. I would hope that we could do a design in a year, and that we're able to pull that off on a road. But I guess I would just put that out to you, Mr. Director, to give that some consideration, that we certainly want to get the entire project done as quickly as we can, and done right, for sure. But that if there was a way to complete everything by the end of 2024, I think that would be pretty sweet. So that was my one question. My second question, if you go back to the slide that shows the corner of King Street and Mountain Road, if you could do that, please.
No problem. Give me one moment. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
And Councillor, you wanted which slide? Sorry.
King Street downtown, basically King Street and Mountain.
That's it.
That's it. So I'm just looking at this slide and wondering about the Mountain Road piece of it, that when you look at pushing back that far for the crosswalk, my first question is, how many people are going to walk back to the crosswalk and then walk across the street and then walk back up to King? And how many people are just going to say, the heck with that, we're just going to cross right here, right at the corner where they've been crossing for years and years and years? The other piece of that is the visibility of traffic coming down, coming northbound on Mountain Road and entering into the downtown. And how that, I guess I'm assuming that the light is back there as well. Maybe my assumption is wrong, that the light is sitting back there. Because if it's not, I don't know how the truck turns the corner in that purple lane. But maybe if you could make comment, probably Ron, on maybe experiences that you've had where crosswalks are pushed back fairly considerably from the corner.
Yes, through the chair. We realize it is a trade-off. Other jurisdictions, and we've been involved in other road safety improvements where the crosswalks have been pulled back. We agree that there's probably going to be some challenges with some people saying, no, I'm not going to walk that distance. It's not that much of a distance if you look at things. I think that it would need a community safety campaign, probably some police out there encouraging people to follow those crosswalks, etc. With respect to your question about visibility, as part of the traffic signal redesign, typically you have your signal heads that are on the opposite side of the intersection, but at times you've probably seen them at intersections. You can have yet another signal head that's on the near side to make sure that any traffic that's coming north on Mountain, it's absolutely clear what the traffic signal display is. You already have done some pedestrian guidance through the installation of the railing, for example, on the south side of King, west of Mountain, in an effort to channel or encourage pedestrians, and that could also be part of the solution. Some additional railing to channel pedestrians towards the crosswalk.
Thank you for that, Ron. And I understand that we haven't got a clean slate here. We're dealing with existing roads, and it's probably not going to get perfect, and we're probably targeting very good instead of perfect. So I appreciate your response. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem. Thank you, Councilor McPherson. And just your first question, Director Graham, your timelines, does that have something to do with the region getting them to the table? I mean, we saw that presentation a few weeks ago where we had plans to do some reconstruction. They've been pushed off. So is that why there's a bit of a buffer there?
To you, Mr. Chairman, the region has been committed, and we've gotten a lot of buy-in for their participation in this. So I'm thinking, we're telling them what the costs are. They've agreed with the upgrade. So they've made it.
And we tell them a date, and they're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think just if I could jump back to the timing, when we looked at this, we were thinking we didn't really want both roads under construction at the same time. Just for we don't have that flexibility or an alternate route. So I think we just have to keep in mind, general disruption in the community as well if we have a number of roads under construction at the same time. So that was another factor that I forgot to mention it for the last question. But
okay, Councillor Minchima.
Thank you, Chair Patrick. I have two questions. One is, there was reference to a noise study that was done and that there wasn't going to be any issues. So I wonder if somebody can expand on that a little bit, because while over the last, since this proposal has come forward to move truck traffic over to Bartlett, as Ward 1 councillors, we've had a few people that live along Bartlett, backing onto Bartlett, that have reached out and may or may not think it's the greatest idea from their perspective. So, if that question came up from one of them, what would I say to them about what the noise study revealed and how it came to the conclusion that it's not a concern?
So I'll respond. So through the chair, we did a noise modeling exercise, and the two things we look at are one is what would be the incremental amount of noise that one would predict with the additional truck traffic, and is it in the order of more than 5 decibels? With the threshold being at under 5 decibels, it's difficult for most people to consider that to be a noticeable difference. And then the second was the absolute sound, and the threshold was, I believe, 65 decibels, and it was predicted that wouldn't be exceeded. So therefore, the typical type of mitigating measures where you might be looking at noise walls and that type of thing weren't warranted. So that was what was determined as part of the implementation study. Again, if there needs to be follow-up as part of detailed design, that could happen. And then the noise study, how it was conducted, and that is included in the supporting documentation for the final report.
Okay, so incremental means sound that comes and goes, and absolute means consistent sound, consistent noise being above 65 decibels. Okay, thanks. That helps. And also the information that this will kind of be looked at potentially again through detailed design and that kind of thing. So appreciate that. And I have another question, Mr. Chair, about the signage responsibilities. We were talking earlier on about the region is going to have some regional roads, right? King and Mountain. So is that the kind of things, responsibilities, preferences, permissions, is that something that would also be settled during detailed design as to where the signage would go?
Who's taking this one? Walter?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, we will be working with the region on the regional roads and on our own roads as well to decide the best location for where the green signs go and where the red signs go. Right now, as we highlighted in the report, prohibited signs that prohibit truck movements on regional roads can't be supported currently, although we are looking at it. So on regional roads, we would only be installing the green permissive signage, but we could install the green signage and the red signage on our own roadway, and we intend to do so. And yes, in answer to your question, the locations will be determined at the detailed design stage.
Okay, thanks. I got the gist of what you said. My internet connection was unstable, but I heard yes, detailed design. So that was my question. So I just want to kind of give an idea of when that would all be sorted out. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Councillor. And if I was reading the appendixes properly, and Ron, you can let me know if I did or not. On those on the noise studies too, you had the same kind of colors that you, not the same colors, but you use the same as the turning radius to show the increase or of the sound and how far it would reach to the yards. Correct? Was that what that was?
Yeah. Yes.
So Councillor, Councillor Jimmy, you can refer to that because you can see the increase in the noise has very, very little effect on even being close to the homes. So, yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, and I wonder if the clerk could bring up page 12 of the presentation. Just for a brief moment. Just getting kind of hung up on the math here, and I'm trying to get back to basics maybe a little bit. There we are. So if I'm reading this correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. So in the year 2024, after this is complete, without any rerouting, the existing traffic on Ontario Street would be between 240 and 360. Is that correct?
Yes.
To staff?
Yes.
And if with 75% rerouting, there would be only 130 trucks diverted from Ontario Street?
Of through trucks, yes. Of through bypass trucks through the chair, yes.
Okay, so of those 240, if you just, the problem I'm getting thrown off here, 75% of 240 is...
No, sorry, pardon me. No, it's 75% of the through traffic that could be diverted.
Okay, so okay, thank you. So then of that between 240 and 360, how many are through traffic? And this is where I'm getting thrown, because I'm trying to figure out what the total number of trucks that are going to be diverted. If it's only 130, do we have that many trucks, local trucks that have to go between the service road and King Street on a daily basis?
So through the chair, there are destinations that are local truck destinations, and so we didn't expect to divert them, and then we broke out the proportion that are through movements, and then we did a sensitivity analysis and tried to come up with what might be a reasonable assumption of what you could expect as diverted, which is 75% rerouting. And so that's how we came up with these numbers. We also, and it's in the report, we also did a version where we predicted 100% rerouting, which I think is a bit optimistic. But we did that in order to confirm that if there was 100% rerouting, that under what we've proposed, that both Durham Road and Bartlett Road could handle the traffic that would be involved in 100% rerouting of the truck, of the through trucks, of the bypass trucks.
Okay, thank you for that. So again, this goes to the overall, I guess it would be the residents' expectation. And to me, it would be that 100%. If we're going to be putting this much money, time, and effort into this program, the expectation should be that we are getting 100% of those through trucks off, and a high percentage of the ones that are local. Obviously, the ones that would be dealing with businesses, houses in that corridor directly between the service road and King, and basically King to Durham. But I can't imagine there's that many trucks on a daily basis that have to gain access to that area. So that's where my concern is, that if we go through all this trouble and we're not getting enough of the trucks off the road, and we're still seeing them coming up, and it's hard to explain why, the residents are going to wonder whether or not this whole journey and cost is going to be worth it.
Who's
I guess.
taking
So
that
it's a-
one? That wasn't rhetorical, right, Councilor?
No, that was a question. Like,
Answer,
So I
yes.
can, so through the chair, working with the town and the region staff, the overall important philosophy is that town of Lincoln and Beamsville needs to have a flexible and flexible road network that can handle truck movements on more than one route. And right now you have Ontario Street predominantly handling it. You have Bartlett Road taking a certain amount of trucks, and you have Durham, which is in very poor condition, taking some trucks. And so the overall philosophy is to make improvements, which you need to do anyway, to both Bartlett Road and to Durham Road, and then also to test them to make sure that they would be able to handle the projected diverted truck traffic. Now, whether or not you can accomplish 75% or 100%, one of the issues is that Ontario is a regional road, and typically regional roads take trucks. They're one of their purposes is to handle trucks, and so you can make Bartlett and Durham much more attractive, and that would be a way in which to divert trucks, as well as working with the truckers to use those routes as opposed to Ontario, but achieving no trucks or hardly any trucks on Ontario Street would first of all require a higher level of restrictions on Ontario Street, and it would have to change its role in the regional road network. And it would also probably require a significant amount of enforcement, to be frank. But investing in Durham Road and investing in Bartlett Road and the features and incorporating features of Durham Road and Bartlett Road that would make them more attractive, again, it greatly improves the potential for actually achieving significantly diverted truck trips.
okay, thank you, Ron. And through you, Mr. Chair, just one quick follow-up. Again, so that statement and that answer is greatly concerning. And I appreciate the candor. But going into this, my expectation wasn't that we were creating a philosophy to possibly have trucks use roads as an alternate routes. It was that we were going to have trucks go on alternate routes. That's it. And going into this and seeing the costs and seeing the time and the amount of effort that's going to get put into this, if at the end of the day we still find the same behavior being repeated, then there's a heck of a lot. I'm trying to be very, very careful with my words. There's a high sensitivity amongst, I would imagine, everybody here on council, every member of staff, and every resident about again whether or not it was worth it or not, and it's greatly concerning. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Deputy Mayor Russell. Councillor McCulloch. Oh, Mr. Graham. Okay, do you have a response? I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Patrick. I just wanted to add a couple comments to Councillor Russell's comments. You know, this whole study, this whole objective, like we are going to be redirecting trucks to Bartlett Road from Mountain Street. We are going to be redirecting trucks, that are coming from a bypass direction from the Vineland area, that, from scale avoidance, if you will. So there are going to be a lot of trucks diverted to Bartlett Road. That is the whole objective of this study. There's still trucks that need to use Ontario Street for a number of reasons, a lot of businesses, a lot of activity happening in that area. So I don't want you to think that, the trucks won't be using these routes that we're proposing. The intent is, and as Ron went through the presentation, we're going to make these routes attractive. We're going to sign these routes for trucks, and there'll be a lot of trucks using them, and there'll be a reduction of trucks on Ontario Street. But we won't be able to get rid of all the trucks on Ontario Street. A lot of trucks need to go into that area for businesses, deliveries, and we also will be working with the region. And we've gotten some good progress from the region in terms of they are going to be, so currently the region won't restrict trucks on their roads with the red signs. However, having said that, we do have a commitment from the region that they're going to be initiating a truck route master plan in 2023 with the objective to look at that regional policy for trucks. And because the region is getting, pressure in other communities to restrict trucks on regional roads. So, that is going to be reviewed by the region as well. And, that may be an opportunity in the future as well. But yeah, I just wanted to make a few comments on that.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, an incredibly complex situation, incredibly important to try to divert truck traffic from Beamsville. I don't think there is an easy solution to this. A question I have to Mr. Stewart would be, do we know, and I don't know if I've seen this or not, or if it's in the report, like what's the ratio like between local truck traffic and like local truck owners? Is it possible to know local truck owners versus out of town truck owners, tourists, passing through truckers?
Sure. So through the chair, we use a firm called Geotab to help with the traffic data. They're a Southern Ontario firm, and what they have devices that are installed in trucks that track their movements, their origins and destinations, speeds, time of day, et cetera, but they do not provide data on the specific ownership of those trucks under privacy. So we don't have specific data on. We don't know as part of the data, and we showed that 45% of the trucks are passed through, et cetera, but we don't know the ownership of those trucks.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And reason why I ask is because I find a lot of people use GPS systems. They use GPS when they're on back roads or they're on roads that are unfamiliar. And they're taking the shortest route, whether they're told to do so or not, or whether they see a suggested sign, and everyone seems to be on a radio. So, I'm concerned whether they're actually going to be using those truck routes. And the question I would have to you is, how important do you feel enforcement would be? What weight would you put enforcement on this whole exercise to try to make this a success?
I through the chair, definitely enforcement has to go hand in hand. We typically talk about these type of projects and the types of improvements you're trying to achieve as engineering, education, and enforcement. And that's what we've tried to cover through this study and through this presentation. So the engineering to make the best effort to make the alternate routes more attractive. And even at intersections at King and Mountain, where everybody agrees it's not ideal, nobody would start with that as the starting point, but that's what you have to deal with. And so some of the proposed changes we made are to, for example, make it more attractive to make a northbound right. So if you're coming north on Mountain, to make a right to go over to Bartlett than to make a left to go over to Ontario, which is what's happening right now. And similarly, the reverse movement to make it more attractive to come from King Street going westbound to go south on Mountain, as opposed to right now where the predominant movements are making the left from Mountain to go to King over to Ontario, and the reverse to come along King from Ontario and make a right to go south on Mountain. So that part of the engineering side is to encourage the truckers to conclude that Bartlett's a better route. The education is, again, to advertise the truck route network and to make sure that that gets disseminated at the local, regional, and provincial levels, along with the Ontario Trucking Association, et cetera. And yes, a third part of it is enforcement. And that would be to to have targeted enforcement at specific locations. And with each passing year, you're seeing more electronic enforcement, that there's a greater acceptance of electronic enforcement that can also be applied to truck routes. And we'll see how that goes at a provincial level in terms of approvals of electronic enforcement. So yes, all of those components would play an important part.
Thank you very much. What I hear from residents is a lack of enforcement. They are always wanting more enforcement, and this is the concern that I have, is to make sure that it is a considerable amount of money and a considerable amount of work to implement this. That it is as much of a success as possible, especially with the GPS aspect, where directing traffic down Bartlett. Is there a possibility that they're going to be turning left onto other side streets or other streets that may take trucks or dump truck traffic through to their ultimate destination, being a QEW, as opposed to going straight all the way to the service road and then making a left, northbound, right? This is what I want to, that we don't create additional problems with trucks taking other routes that they wouldn't typically have normally taken. That's the concerns I have. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Easton, are you with us just without camera?
No, I'm with you.
Without
Just
camera, okay, so you're up.
No, just a moment. I just wasn't too quick with that. No,
That's
I
okay.
should have camera, but for some reason or other, I don't know what's going on, but can you still hear me?
We can hear you. The
All
floor
right,
is yours,
so
Madam Mayor.
you'll have to guide me, because I can't see anybody or anything for some reason or other. Anyway, this is I got the biggest version of this report from Mr. Graham and Mr. Neubauer. So I'm pretty enthusiastic by having this massive document on my table. And it just screams to me of here's a way to go ahead if you want to. And there's no question about it, Mr. Chairman, not everything is perfect, but this is certainly the most encouraging document I've seen in probably 20 years. So as Councillor Mikulik says, this is sufficiently complex. So we got expertise, we brought community input to a certain degree. It's very important. And we're at a point now where we can start making some decisions. Why do we want to make decisions? Because we want to be in control of our destiny. So I'm going to ask some questions, Mr. Chairman, about things that we can get started, because Councillor McPherson is right. We shouldn't be delaying. We should be finding every means that we can to get started. So let's start with the fact that the province is going to have a regulation coming in place around soil management regulations, which means that soil has to be managed to the greatest extent on site. That is going to eliminate soil trucks coming from the outside. And I'm saying outside because I think we need to have a different plan. And this is a different situation, which the region has now taken ownership of. They're going to be dealing with this. So also those trucks will not be on this road. In a few years, we will not be developing on this road, maybe down at the furthest end on the most northern regions of it, but not in the central core, not in the downtown business district. So I think that will make a difference. So if we started, Mr. Graham, to put signs up now on every route that we didn't want trucks on, north-south, just like Grimsby has, and east-west, roads like Aberdeen, roads like Mountain View, roads like 30 Road. Is there anything to prevent us from doing that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mayor Easton. I mean, we do have the authority to sign our roads if there are roads. I think we just have to think about are we displacing traffic somewhere else and that kind of, analysis. But, if there are roads, yes, we do have, the authority to put restrictions on our roads.
But I'm just talking about trucks. We don't want trucks on those roads, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So we can do that. So please keep that in mind because I think that's really important. Scale avoidance. This report tells us that there's scale avoidance. We've never gotten anybody to admit that to us. We have scale avoidance. It's on Green Lane. It's on, it brings trucks further down Victoria Avenue. It brings trucks further up. It brings trucks across on John Street. There's all kinds of avoidance. And that page 11, that is a beauty. That is a very, very valuable demonstration of just how bad this problem is. So that tells me that we can start putting signs on those roads as well. Green Lane at Victoria Avenue, no trucks. So again, that's further analysis that we need to do, but it's all about our controlling our destiny. I think this also gives relief to Victoria Avenue. I don't know to what extent, but if you don't have those trucks coming down from the south and getting onto Victoria Avenue, whether it's above Regional 81 or below, it's going to bring relief to the people in those areas. So, so that prohibitive signage, that needs to go wherever we think it could be beneficial. And I'd like maybe a follow-up report on this to tell us just exactly what we could do. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want anybody to delay anything. Let's just get on with this and find our way as we go along. Truck route mapping. Yes, let's get a map in place. Even if we don't have the perfect road system, get a map in place so we can have a bylaw in place. We have a bylaw in place, we have enforcement. People should need to know where they're not supposed to be traveling. And I'm just talking about trucks. I'm not talking about other business. So the other point that I want to make is this isn't just about, and this is the point that came up at the Ward 1 meeting. This is not about taking trucks from one road and putting them on another. This is about public safety and truck movement, any kind of pedestrian movement. And I think those intersections where we're narrowing how far people have to travel, it seems to me, Mr. Graham, am I correct that it's better if you have a narrower crosswalk?
Through Mr.
On
Chair.
a busy street?
Yeah, Mayor Easton, yes. I mean, I think what, we found that, the intersection modifications for Mountain King are quite innovative of what IBI has proposed, Ron and his team. So what we're trying to do is bring those pedestrians back from the radius of that corner where you've got, the potential for wheels, turning along the curb, and we want to cross people a little bit further back. And as you said, make it a little more narrower and provide a safer crossing for pedestrians. So yeah, we do believe that is a very good recommendation.
Okay, so you've also included in this report is the issue of the cameras to go in the 2022 budget. 100%, I support that. So I'll be expecting to see that in the next iteration. Weight limits. There are portable scales out there. I found this out, if you'll recall, Mr. Graham, when you escorted me to the last blitz last year. Portable scales. The officer does not have a complete set. We need to get portable scales. There has to be more officer training. In the Niagara region. We need that kind of support. So I'm prepared to speak to the chief, the CAO, and I will do that. Councillor Foster, we'll deal with that. We need to get that done now, immediately. The truck lay-by, absolutely. It was always considered a barrier, so let's get that out of the way. So if we can start, if we can get Bartlett Road started as soon as possible, I mean, with impunity, we should be moving forward for our own well-being and build in the light, the cost of the light on Bartlett right off the bat. I don't want to be fighting about warrants after the fact. That's going to spoil the whole plan that we have here. The light needs to go in at the time. So we need to consider that, and it may mean there has to be a light at John Street as well. So thank you very much for this report. It's extremely encouraging. It just has the greatest potential. It's up to us now, whether we push forward or whether we just find reasons not to do things or to do things peripherally. We don't want to do that. We want to take every step that we possibly can and put some pepper behind it. I think that's what the public are expecting, and that's what we should be doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mayor Easton. And we got to go to, speaking of pepper, we got to go to the bullpen once more. I'm going to call on VC Reimer because I went through the online report and have a few questions to Mr. Stewart. So VC,
Before
take the chair for me.
Got it.
Awesome. Okay. Ron, got a couple questions here. So on page 294 of the report, maybe this is a tag team with you and Mr. Graham. So we identify Mountain Street, Mountain Road from King to Spring Creek as a proposed signed bike route. So being on the town's active transportation committee, we're pushing for separated bike lanes or separated, like not paved shoulders. So knowing that we've got Frost Road coming up in the budget shortly, there is a bike route, Hickson to the bike ladder to Frost Road to Spring Creek once the bridge is retained. That would be a much safer bike route, in my opinion, because you're still going to be having bikes on the shoulders of Mountain Street with the quarry trucks coming. So I want to get to, I guess this was more Dave because with the Frost Road coming up in the budget. So Dave, thoughts on that?
Yeah, Councillor Patriva, Chairman, absolutely. I mean, I think that was some of the thinking that went into the transportation master plan, and focusing on Frost Road is another alternative, if you will, to Mountain Road for active transportation. I think, when we upgrade Mountain Road, it's going to need resurfacing in a few years. We definitely would look at paving those shoulders and looking at providing separation for bicycles if we're going to do that work. But at the same time, I would also recommend that, we focus on Frost Road too for active transportation. That is in our master plan. As you noted, we're looking at the bridge and looking at, what would be the best type of bridge to put across there. So,
okay, that's good, because having done a few cycling events up over the hill there, the people don't want to ride along on the shoulder. I mean, your hardcore riders will, but your leisure cyclist does not want to ride along the shoulders of Fly Road and Mountain Road. Given alternative routes, they will seek them and find them. So, okay. With respect, this is okay, Ron. Now this is your question. So, with respect to the rail crossings at Durham and Bartlett, in Exhibit 6.25, it lists the number of tracks as 1. But with the advent of GO coming, is there not the talk of extending? So right now there's double tracks that end at Nellis Road, and there used to be double tracks all the way to St. Catharines, and they took them out. So they're talking about them going back in. So would these two crossings not need to be upgraded with 2 tracks in mind? Like, I would hate like heck to do it now and then have the GO station come in and us they put in another set of tracks and then we're not ready to go.
Okay, so through the chair, we've made recommendations with respect to dealing with Durham Road and Bartlett Road in the cross section and the need to relocate certain elements. If there was a double track, There would certainly need to be potentially a relocation of where, for example, the crossing arms are and some of the things like that. But I don't believe besides that, it would change any of the recommendations on how to deal with the approaches and how to deal with pedestrians and cyclists and that type of thing. And it wouldn't increase the rail traffic such that it would result in a recommendations more than what we've proposed. Like it wouldn't suddenly approach that you need a grade separation.
Okay,
it's still, the exposure rate is still quite low.
Okay, that's terrific. And then I've got just dealing with Bartlett now. If we're going to divert the truck traffic to Bartlett, and this came up the other day when talking to a resident on Aberdeen, why wouldn't we be signalizing King and Bartlett? So if we want them to make a left-hand turn to go down, would not a signal with an advanced green make it expeditious for those trucks to navigate that turn, especially when traffic is coming west at 70 and just there dropping to 50, as opposed to John and Green Lane signalizing that.
Right. So again, through the chair, the decision to install traffic signals, like nothing in the implementation plan would preclude installing traffic signals at King and Bartlett.
Okay.
It wasn't determined to be necessary. Certainly, you would want to do that if you got to where the traffic on King was such that, as you said, there's delays in making the left onto Bartlett.
Mm-hmm.
And also if the cross traffic on Aberdeen and on Bartlett got to the point where you needed traffic signals. And certainly if you were to implement traffic signals, including a feature such as having an advanced green for that eastbound traffic to turn north onto Bartlett would make sense as part of that.
Okay. Yeah. But just because, Ontario and King is signalized, Mountain and King is signalized, it's just, it just would make sense to me if we're going to redirect them, that we would do that. And then my other question, Chair, which with a little bit of leniency again with Bartlett.
That's number 4, but I'll give it to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, VC. So again, with the multi-use trail, and again, Ron, you said this can be done at site.
Detailed design. Yeah. So to me, again, from an active transportation standpoint, it doesn't make sense to have the multi-use trail and the lay-by both on the west side. It makes more sense to have that multi-use trail. Multi-use trail on the west side, lay-by on the east side. So that way you'd have the connectivity with the existing trail, right? You wouldn't want them both on the same side of the road, in my opinion, right? And it would just be easier with the connection to Conkle Creek. Director Graham and I have talked about this before, so. Right, I know there's relocations, and Walter had mentioned that relocations and having to, make the sidewalk a multi-use trail. But I mean, if we're going from the aspect of safety, I think the west side for the multi-use is much safer. So thank you.
Walter, did you want to, just saw your hand go up. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Pachariva. Absolutely, through the detailed design stage, we plan on doing significant consultation with the public to determine the best location for the multi-use trail. It's shown on the east side as, there's a lot of advantages to putting it on the east side, but there, like you said, I consider there's probably a lot of advantages on the west side. We'll have to take a look at the impacts to the platform width for the roadway, as well as utilities that are there. So we'll be looking at the multi-use trail and its location in tremendous detail. And we will continue to engage with our active transportation committee, as well as residents in the neighborhood, to make the determination where we're going to get the most benefit for this trail. And also recognizing the cost implications and the implications for construction as well.
Yeah, I just don't think it makes sense to have the lay-by and the multi-use trail on the same side, right? So it's potential conflict waiting to happen. So thank you. Thank you, Chair Reimer.
Thank you, Roth. Back to you, Chair Patriarca.
Okay, Councilor Russell, Deputy Mayor, you're in for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to be quick. Again, Director Graham, I know you kind of alluded to it a little bit at the end of my my series of questions, but I was already on question 3, so I couldn't do any follow-up. But just through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Graham, I'm wondering if you could just clearly outline, now again, I'll use the mayor's statement, what the pepper aspect of enforcement would be as far as trying to, I don't want to say encourage, but trying to make trucks use this route as opposed to using Ontario. What's that path?
Through you, Chair Patriarca, to Councilor Russell. So are you referring to more enforcement or just the whole route design and everything else?
Well, just how do we get the trucks to actually use it, as opposed to it making it really nice and optimal for them? Again, I always find, especially with traffic, kids, whatever it might be, the path of least resistance is usually the path that is taken most often, and I'm concerned that this is all going to be for naught.
Well, I mean, I think, and maybe Ron might want to add a few comments too, but I think what we've learned, and I know what Ron has brought from other studies that he's worked on for municipalities. Once you put up that green sign, like, I think we have an obligation as the town to tell trucks where we want them to go, and that is one, shortfall, I think, on a lot of regional roads, a lot of roads. Trucks are, they're just taking these roads, but if we clearly sign these roads with big signs and green arrows, and as Ron was saying, we engineer these roads so we can make it easier to turn this way opposed to this way, I think that's going to be quite successful. And again, getting communication out with a truck map and telling truck drivers what roads they're supposed to take and what roads are signed, etc. So, I mean, I think that's going to be really critical, having a good signage program. And then we're also going to be looking at ways that we can provide a lot more teeth in our bylaw with these green signs, right? So the green signs are going to be, we have to look at options for enforcement. So this is the truck route we want you to take. We're going to be looking at opportunities, in terms of our bylaw, our own bylaws, and how we can make them much more stronger for enforcement. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does,
but
and through you, Mr. Chair, to follow up, and you also mentioned something about the region and their truck routes on using their regional roads, and they have to make a change to their own plans and policies. What's that path?
Yeah, so through Mr. Chair, to the Councilor Russell. So yeah, absolutely. So, and I know as Mayor Easton highlighted earlier, we as the town, we can put red signs if we deem necessary on certain roads that we have, if we want to restrict trucks. And we have to look at what those impacts might be, but we can do that with our own, we own the roads, right? We're the road authority. But the region right now, their policy is they won't put red signs, no trucks, if you will, on their roads. So, but what the region is doing is they're looking at developing a truck route policy plan, if you will, so that they're going to take a much closer look at this. And I think with the understanding that they want to start doing this, they're getting pressure to do this in other communities where it maybe isn't appropriate to put trucks on roads, on regional roads, right? So they are going to be looking at that. Right now, their current policy is that regional roads provide good movements for trucks. So the region isn't prepared to ban or prohibit trucks from regional roads. But having said that, they are totally willing to work with us on the green signs. So we can put the green signs on regional roads, which we feel will be very effective.
Can we put the red signs on the regional roads?
We could try, but they'll probably get taken down. No, I'm just kidding. But the region has agreed to look at that with their policies. They're just not ready to do that right now.
Okay. Thank you, Director.
Because there's a lot to that exercise in terms of the impacts if they do that. So.
Okay. Vice Chair Reimer, you're up.
I'll be quick. This is running on pretty long, but I want to just make a couple of comments, Chair Patry, if I could.
Go ahead.
Just regarding trucks, I do support the goal of avoiding downtown Beamsville, the Ontario Street. I think it's great that we seek alternative routes. But trucks are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. I think we have to base this in a bit of reality as well. We've had construction that's been unseen in the last 2 or 3 years. Concrete, gravel, construction trucks. All the traffic comes from our bench, Beamsville bench, down to the QEW, the majority of it. Okay, and that has created a lot of this. I would suggest most of this concern. We have 3 quarries, very busy quarries on top of in our town, on top of the hill, not situated very well. They all got to get down to QEW. The vast majority of the trucks that come down go to the QEW. And not only are these going to be emptied over the next 10, 20, 30 years, they're also going to be back filled up. So there's dozens and dozens of trucks of soil that go up to the Vineland quarry every day, legally dumped, and fill it back up. So just because the trucks are going to slow down bringing stone down, there's still going to be dirt that gets tested and is allowed to dump there legally. And there's 2 more quarries in Beams that are going to have the same thing. We have greenhouses, wineries, grain farms, and lots of indirect traffic coming from Smithville, Welland, Fond Hill that still filters down through here. So I just want to make sure that we're not in this seeing this vision of no trucks being around Lincoln at all. They're always going to be here. I believe I agree with Ron of the 3 E's: engineering, enforcement, and education. Enforcement for the town of Lincoln is the cheapest, and that will create the most effect. If we want to have the most effect on what's going on here, we will focus on enforcement. Many of you know I'm in the industry, so if you want to fix this problem without spending a whole lot of money, enforcement has to be a huge part of this. And I think we need to remember that we have a lot of companies who do run their trucks safe and at the proper weights and do a lot of work right in town here. And by creating all these roadblocks, we're going to stop. And we've talked about it before, wineries going from one side of Beamsville to the other, and farmers going from their farm up in Camden down to the one on Tufford Road, and vice versa. Everything goes on trucks. It's going to be on trucks. I think that we just have to have that on one side of the scale, and we don't go too far over. Okay, I totally support that the truck safety and also the alternative route through Beamsville, but there's got to be a part of this where we weigh, I believe, reality. So thanks very much, Councillor Patry.
Thank you, VC Reimer, for very salient points. So I see no further discussion. I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell to receive and file report PW 32-21, the Beamsville Truck Bypass Implementation Study Update. I will now ask our Deputy Clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Mikulak?
Yes.
Councillor Padriva?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Rajima?
Yes.
Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers? Councillor Timmers?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Easton?
Support.
Thank you. Chair, that carries.
Awesome, Devan. So prior to proceeding to item 9, which is our confidential items, would council like a 5-minute recess? I most certainly would. Yes, no, maybe so. I don't see any hands. I don't see any head shaking. What do we got? The mayor? Okay. 5 minutes. Julie, start the timer.